Renatus, you're going? Are we going with you?
So yeah, we're good.
Okay. Welcome to our City Council meeting for tonight, June 10th, 2020. We would like to begin with an invocation by Reverend Pearson from the Community Presbyterian Church, and then we will have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Melling.
Would you pray with me? Our gracious God, we give you thanks today for your blessings to us. Thank you for this beautiful place in southern Utah that we call home. Thank you for the people who enrich our lives. Thank you for family and friends. God, we pray for our nation tonight. During these days of protests and unrest, we pray that each of us would listen well to the voices of others. We pray that the protests and the marches would continue to be peaceful, as many raise their voices in the cause of racial injustice. Our prayers continue for members of law enforcement. Guard and protect these who serve as they also work for justice and fairness in all situations. God, we pray that good things would come out of these days and that meaningful change could take place. Lord God, we pray for peace and that reconciling voices can be heard. We pray for our community as we continue to battle the COVID-19 pandemic. We are so thankful for all of our medical professionals and first responders who have stepped up to the challenge of serving others even while putting their own health and safety at risk. We pray that the number of cases of the virus in our county would stabilize again. Give us wisdom as to how and when to be out and about and when to stay home. We pray in thanksgiving today also for all the essential workers in our community who have been serving faithfully in the last 3 months. Thank you for their strong spirit of serving others. We pray for the upcoming election. Pray for wisdom and direction as we vote. We pray for a strong turnout, that many would exercise their freedom to cast a ballot. God, we pray for our city and for all the leaders that guide us. Give wisdom to those who will lead discussions and make decisions at this meeting tonight. Allow each one to listen carefully and to consider wisely what is best for our city and all of its people. Lord, we pray for direction for this, our city council, so that all that they do and say would build a spirit of unity and partnership in our community. We pray with great thanksgiving today in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both. We appreciate it. We will now move on to the agenda order approval, and this will be for all three agendas. Are there any items the council would like changed from the published agenda? And if not, can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the agendas, printed agendas.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll go to council business.
I'd just like to just declare up front before we get to any other items, so I don't forget during the budget, that just for the record, that my wife is a city employee.
Perfect.
Mayor,
Yes.
I have,
Yeah, like, it's a little bit awkward when I'm like,
I'm the outlier here, but I've had a couple of constituents express gratitude for what was done over on Bentley and Royal Hunt, the reconstruction of that corner and the wheelchair ramps and everything. They're just ecstatic with the outcome of that work, and thank our street people for just how they've done that. That same constituent is concerned about a field of thistles that's growing east of the fence to the lake on the hills, so. And I don't know who owns that property.
Cedar City Corporation.
Okay. Then I'm bringing it up to the right folks.
Yes, you are.
But that's, when it comes to noxious weeds, that's about as noxious as they get, so.
Yes.
I have one item. I had started doing those council walks in neighborhoods throughout the city before COVID hit. I believe because of the warm weather and because people need to be heard, I will start doing those again toward the end of this month with social distancing and masks and everything else to make sure everything's okay, but so we can be sure people are being heard. I'll post that date to social media within the next week, and this will be the one that was postponed along the 400 North area between about 1st and 14th West.
Thank you.
Mayor, I have 2 or 3 items I'd like to express. First of all, I want to thank our Public Works people for getting out and responding so well to sweeping the underpass. At least I noticed on the south side, it still looks like on the north side it needs to be done. And if we could have the street sweeper come out and pick up all those cinders and things. But they responded immediately last week, and I appreciate that. I also am wondering, I've noticed in downtown that they've placed the Utah Shakespeare Festival banners up, and I understand it's a contract that they have with that company, even though their season has been canceled. But I'm wondering if we could I'm requesting that the banners that go with our hashtag Cedar City Together could go back up in the downtown area as well. We have double brackets there, and I'd really like to see those banners go back up there. So I don't know who I need to share that with. I don't know if that's Wade's here tonight, but
Shakespeare paid to have those put up, even though they were not having a season.
yeah, I think it's a mixed
So
message, but
So that's
Not
why
my
we
call.
put those up.
but we'd have a double
Champion
brackets,
together.
and yes, because I think it ties the whole campaign together, and I think it's a very positive sign for our community. The last thing I'd like to is just offer a thanks to our street department. I was out at the airport yesterday and had a chance to do a quick review of where we're at in the process at the airport reconstruction, and it looks terrific. Mr. Holt took myself and Commissioner Blake and a couple of the airport board. You weren't there, but there were other people there. And I want to thank them for the new sidewalks we have out there. We've got some beautiful new sidewalks that take us from the parking lot over to the hangars in the aviation area, and then a sidewalk that takes us over to the overflow parking. So thanks to our street department and Kit, you, or whoever is responsible for that. So thank you very much.
All right. Is there anything else? We do need to thank our fire department for the amazing job they did this weekend. It was a very busy Saturday for both police and fire.
Yes, it was.
Fire got to make it so the Genpack fire was not worse, and are they back open? They are able to be back open in under a week, which is incredible, I think.
Yeah.
And the police department, there was another Black Lives Matter protest, and they helped provide security so that the protesters that were exercising their First Amendment were able to safely do so. And so thank you to both groups for the work. We have an amazing city staff with all they do. And speaking of that, it moves very well into our next item.
Good evening, council, mayor, and staff. So tonight we will swear
You
in.
seriously did
Sorry,
not say your
Darren
name.
Adams with the police department. We're swearing in another officer tonight. He was not here last week, would have joined the other crowd, but he was up, as you recall, at the police academy learning how to drive an emergency vehicle. So this is Officer Shea Shirts, and he's going to introduce his family, and then we'll swear him in.
Thank you so much. Like Chief said, my name is Shea Shirts. I'm joined with pretty much my entire family here. I have grandparents, brothers and sisters. My wife and my parents are all here, so thank you so much.
And a little crying baby.
And that's my niece.
She's cute.
As you're probably aware, Shay's the son of Mike Schertz, our fire marshal, so that's an exciting time for the family.
If you want to come take pictures over here, back here, wherever. You can come up
Anywhere you want to be.
wherever.
This is up to
Get
you.
the best shot.
You can go even right behind Craig. He doesn't care. You can come up here. Yeah.
Oh, we don't want us.
Yeah.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah.
and the Constitution of the State of Utah.
I will discharge the duties of my office
That I will discharge the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Man, that's big.
I'll have to tell you one later.
Officer Schertz, normally you would shake all our hands, but we'll give you.
And air five, air five.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you have a whole bunch out in the hall, too.
Yeah, they're here to support him.
I know. Who's all here?
You guys want to just come so they can see
I know you don't, but will you anyway? This is literally like the most painful thing for all of you. It's like so entertaining.
We love our people too, so we'll just like stay out of the way.
Well, thank you for coming and showing
Thank you.
support. All right. Do you want to go to your part?
I got two things.
I know.
So, yeah, two things real quick. Last fall, we signed a...
Thank you to all of your family for your support as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We entered an agreement with a company called Service Line Warranties, and they were sending out letters to let people know that they are responsible to maintain the sewer and water service laterals that run from the city connections to their homes. We were really careful with them in the wording on the letters, and as council predicted, we've started to receive a couple phone calls from folks asking about them. We've been really careful to tell these folks that, yes, we know our logos on that letter, and part of the reason we signed up with them was to put the information out and educate the public that they are responsible for those service laterals. And then the second part of why we contracted with them is so they would come here and provide an option, and it's totally optional and totally voluntary. So the folks that I've talked to have been really easy to communicate that message to. We'll probably post something tomorrow on our social media account to that nature. The next item is when you move to pay the bills here in a moment, would you please also include allowing staff to pay J.P. Morgan Chase in the amount of $367,084.17. That's the lower rate on the Aquatic Center bond. They sent us a bill. It was due on the 1st. They sent it on the 1st. They should have sent it last month, but they didn't. So they're calling and asking for payment, and we would like to help expedite that as quickly as we can.
And they'll rectify this, I guess, in the future to make sure they receive any other payments.
I haven't gone into detail with Wendy, but I think Wendy went into great detail with the guy sending the bill today.
Are there any other staff comments? Very strange. You're all spread out tonight, not in your normal spots. All right, then we will move on to our business agenda with public comments. Stay your name or
Dan Kidder, Cedar City.
so good.
You didn't even give me a chance.
I know.
Would you like us to save our specific agenda item comments for that portion, or would you like us to say them now?
You can save them for that portion.
Okay, then I have an announcement to make. Tomorrow at 6 p.m. on the front steps of City Hall, there will be a protest. There will be a protest for I Back the Blue. It is a protest in honor and on behalf of our police officers in the city. You are all invited. I invite the public to come. I just spoke with Alex Cabrero from KSL. He is very diligently trying to come. He has to get permission from his editors in the morning, depending on what happens between now and then. But his plan is to be here as well, so it will be televised on KSL. And we have some great speakers, and we have a young lady coming to sing the national anthem all the way up from St. George. And it should be a great protest. I have signs for everybody that they can also take home and place on their lawns. And it is called a protest for a reason. And
That was my question.
I will give that reason tomorrow at 6 p.m. Not to sound cryptic, but it does.
Okay.
All right. If there's any other comments not about an agenda item, I think some of you are probably here related to the budget. Is that what I'm guessing? Okay, related to the gyms. Okay, that's related to the budget. So, when we get to that part, then we will have comments, so it's all tied into the conversation at hand. Okay, so if there are no other general public comments. Okay, perfect. Then we will move on to our public portion with the consent agenda. Item number 1, approval of minutes dated May 20th and 27th, 2020. Ratify bills dated May 7th, June 3rd, and the J.P. Morgan Chase bill in the amount of that. Approval of the final plat for the Cedar Bend PUD Phase 3 subdivision. Approve purchase contract with Automotive Equipment of Nevada for new shop equipment for the fleet building project. Approve the purchase and installation of contract with Rotary Lift for vehicle lifts for the fleet building project. Approve amendments to the IRMA interlocal agreement part 2. Approve the appointment of Elaine Vickers and reappointment of Bruce Winslow to the library board and appointment of Chad Carter to the Board of Adjustments.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Go to the action agenda. Item number 8, consider an ordinance amending the zone from R-2-2 to INM-1 for property located 800 West Coal Creek Road.
I don't see Mr. Adams here. This is that property the city disposed of to Kate Adams a few months ago. The zone changes in compliance with the city's general plan.
He's not going to get paid by his dad then.
Move to approve the zone change.
Second.
All right, we'll do a roll call. We'll start with Councilman Isom,
Aye.
Councilman Melling,
Aye.
Councilman Hartley,
Aye.
Councilman Phillips,
Aye.
Councilman Adams.
Aye.
Thank you. Consider working with the chamber on a small business grant program.
Yeah, so as I had brought up last week, there were quite a number of changes from what had been discussed several weeks ago. So kind of in a nutshell, this would be a grant program to help out small businesses with the recovery efforts from reopening. And the chamber had come to us, I think it's been a couple months ago now, asking us to contribute a more significant sum We are now looking at contributing $25,000 to this. The Salt Lake Chamber has already facilitated the awarding of $25,000 of grants that were privately funded, and this would be just the city matching that and helping out with that. My understanding is there may be more possibilities to help out to a greater extent in the near future, but I personally would still like to move forward with this effort in helping out those businesses that have imminent needs after quite a bit of back and forth, this program would basically just be funded with some basic criteria given by the city. The funding would go to the Salt Lake Chamber Foundation and administered according to the city's criteria by the local Chamber of Commerce to approve those grants, the grant applications. The announcement for those would go through official channels through the city, using a application link. The Chamber of Commerce has stated that they could send us that link within a day or two of us approving this, if it is approved, that we could use then to send out applications.
Is that the mass email?
Yes.
Would that be okay if we did that on Monday?
Right, yeah, that's.
Monday's good.
Yeah, I just, as far as the chamber is concerned, they're ready to provide that pretty quickly. And then, so just to reiterate, I read a list last week, but I had missed a couple key items. So I'll just read off these requirements and conditions of the program. So the who is that Cedar City grants a $25,000 award to the Salt Lake Chamber Foundation and administered according to the Cedar City Chamber of Commerce's terms. The requirements that would be imposed by Cedar City Corporation on the use of those funds. Number one, the funds may not be used for chamber operations and must go directly to qualifying businesses. Number two, qualifying businesses must be licensed and located in Cedar City municipal boundaries and must have been in operation before January 1st, 2020. Three, criteria may not require or prefer Chamber of Commerce membership. Number four, selections must be made by a Chamber of Commerce committee of at least 3 persons. They have appointed those persons if this does pass, and if that's information that would be requested, I can come back to that. Number five, no more than $1,000 will be distributed to any one business. So these are very small grants. Number six, Chamber must remit funds not distributed by December 31st, 2020 to the Cedar City Corporation. Seven, the Chamber must give a report to Cedar City Corporation regarding the impact of the grant program at the earlier of January 30th, 2021, or 30 days after the final distribution of funds to qualifying businesses. Number eight, the grant program announcement must be made through official Cedar City channels before any other organization may promote the program. Guidelines that will be given to the Chamber in its application process as well. Number one, preference for businesses demonstrating greatest need. Number two, preference for businesses desiring to apply funds to reopening, increasing or maintaining employee count, and/or needing funds to order inventory or equipment needed to reopen. And number three, preference for businesses where $1,000 will have the greatest impact. So those are some of the terms, and I'd like to open it up to discussion if there are any other comments from staff or council regarding this matter.
I assume the chamber has agreed to these guidelines, suggested guidelines?
Yes, the Chamber and the Salt Lake Chamber Foundation are both on board with this.
Thank you.
We'll bring it up next. We'll do a presentation next week.
It looks like we have one in the audience as well that has a question.
You have to come up to the microphone.
Laura Henderson. So now that's going to be 50 businesses because it's going to be a match between Salt Lake Chamber and the city? So it'll be 50 businesses receiving 1,000 each.
The Salt Lake Chamber had already facilitated with the private funds. They had granted $5,000 grants to 5 businesses.
I see, okay.
And those distributions, I think, occurred about 6 weeks ago. And so this is, even though it was a matching program, the matchers decided to go ahead and distribute that right away.
I see it. Okay, thank you.
And I think our intent here is to really try and help the smaller mom and pop, because we realize $1,000 is not a lot of money, but it might be the thing that helps a very small business with some element affected by COVID-19.
Right. Any other comments, questions?
I would just say, add to that, I really believe that $1,000 can make a big difference in a small company. And so I think this is a great gesture. Next week, we'll talk about more opportunities and
Okay.
some fairly nice, big opportunities.
So
You're just like giddy like a little child
Yeah.
at Christmas. This
I
is so
am,
funny.
Because there are things in the works that will have tremendous impact. So this is a start.
All right. Can we get a motion then?
Councilman Melling, you prepared to make a motion?
I would move to approve the guidelines as I have just outlined.
For $25,000.
For $25,000, according to those terms, from Cedar City Corporation to the Salt Lake Chamber Foundation and administered by the Cedar City Area Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you.
I second that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, consider a resolution of the Central Iron County Water Conservancy District exercising the city's support for the Wawa and Pine Valley water projects.
Tyler.
Absolutely.
Paul Monroe with the Central Iron County Water Conservancy District.
All right. Does
Had
council
a
have
good discussion and presentation last time. Are there any questions or concerns? Thoughts on the matter?
I just, my sort of underlying question or response here is that I want to make sure with this resolution, it is allowing the Conservancy District to move forward with on the federal level and the environmental impact issues you need to do, but it is not a firm commitment at this time that the city is into this project for yet to know amount of money, because we don't know what it's going to cost yet. Is that correct, Paul?
Yeah, that's the way that it's drafted. There's definitely no terms of any monetary amounts that are involved, because those are still unknown at this time, and there are no implications of any percentage amount or quantities of water that would be taken by the city.
So this allows us to continue to analyze, to
Yeah.
move forward, looking critically at this.
Right. Yeah, it's basically just that notion of support, that this is something that you are seriously considering as an option for your water portfolio for the area.
I'll make that motion that we approve the resolution as stated.
I'll second that.
All right. We'll start with Councilman Adams.
Aye.
Councilman Phillips.
Aye.
Councilwoman Hartley.
Aye.
Councilman Melling.
Aye.
Councilman Isom.
Aye.
It is a lot more difficult to go down the row when you're not in a row. All right. Item number 11, consider an emergency water connection contract with the Central Iron County Water Conservancy District for the Sunset Subdivision Bumblebee Water System.
So if you give your approval here, we don't have a contract before you today, but if you approve the idea of entering the contract, Paul can start drafting, and his guys will start drafting a contract. Tyler can start making some amendments to our water ordinance, and then we'll bring them both back to you. If you guys say, no, we're not interested, then nobody will do anything.
Again, this is for emergency use only for this particular subdivision, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And just a reminder, this is a subdivision that's out on intersection basically of Vandenberg and Bumblebee. Cedar has a water line that basically bisects the subdivision, cuts through it, and we would just connect that system into that system out there. And if that's the case, then the district would seriously look at taking over that as a water system. So.
And to clarify again for the record that how far is the nearest Conservancy District maintained line?
It would be at the Y, and I didn't map that out.
Roughly 2 miles, mile and a half.
Probably 3 or 4.
I'd say closer to
A few
7.
miles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's a ways
Significant
out
distance.
Yeah, I mean, Kit could
Okay.
probably maybe draw it up really quick, but it would be from the Y to Vandenberg and Bumblebee.
Oh, that's at least 6 or 7 miles.
there.
Yeah.
Okay. I would move to approve going forward with that idea pending final language of a contract and ordinance adjustment.
Mayor, may I just make one quick comment, please?
I shouldn't, because there's a motion.
Okay, well, we jumped in there too quick.
So it's his fault, huh?
But
So this is discussion on the motion then, right?
Well, yeah, this is
Okay.
discussion on the motion. I've always wanted to say that. Just one
You
thing in
still
mind.
haven't said
Oh,
your
Tom
name.
Jett.
You
Well,
interrupt and don't say your name.
No, well, the chief got away with it.
No, he
Almost.
People's children.
didn't. I know, geez,
These-
you know better.
Just make sure when we're writing the ordinance that the cost of this hookup and the cost of the infrastructure for such a emergency hookup shall be borne by the cost of the conservancy or at the cost of the subdivision. So that's just one suggestion. Thank you.
I think we made that clear last week. That
Yes.
that would be-
Just to clarify too, for the record, that the district is not interested in basically rescuing these subdivisions at the expense of any of the taxpayers, those included part of Cedar City that pay into the district, to basically rescue these subdivisions and pay for it. So they are going to pay their own way and make all of the improvements to their infrastructure to district standards before we will take them over.
Do you want them to distribute
Our
it
water
or
department is still on board.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything from Robbie, and Ryan's in the hallway. He's nodding vigorously up and down in a
Okay.
yes-like motion.
All right, so we have a motion. We need a second.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, consider resolution amending the city's fee schedule. This is good old Tyler.
So, two sections to this fee amendment. One deals with water meters. It's been outlined in the exhibit that Robbie talked about last time. And then the second part had to do with the library. And Steve's here to be able to discuss some of his research that was requested last week.
How was the most beautiful woman in the world?
I don't know. I didn't get back in time to see her.
Okay, we actually need to clarify why I said that, because that sounds super creepy
I
if
think
we
we're
don't.
just good.
No,
I think-
that sounds so creepy.
Actually, I did get back just as it was ending. To clarify,
But you still have to say your name, and
I'm
then
Steve
please
Decker,
clarify
Library
so I
Director.
don't seem creepy.
Steve Decker, Library Director. Every Wednesday night, we have a thing at the library called Character Sketches. Tonight, we're doing Don Juan, if anybody wants to come and draw. You can use any medium you'd like, but last week we had Helen of
Hell
Troy
tonight? Is
here.
Don Juan in hell tonight?
What's that?
Is he in hell?
He is not.
Just checking.
He's in the library, so he can't be. Last week we did Helen of Troy, the most beautiful woman in the world, who had a face that launched 1,000 ships. And I didn't get back in time to draw her, so that's what the comment was.
So not creepy.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that.
clarification.
I really have nothing to add to the write-up unless you have specific questions.
I appreciate you doing it, and I appreciate getting some set figures so we have something to follow. Even though the amount may not be substantial, it at least gives some guidelines. And I do believe if we are hosting these events and participating, that the library should get some small portion of that back to the library.
And I do appreciate as well that it, the fee structure only applies for events that are charging
That is correct.
participation fees, that it, I think the library should remain free and open to anyone who wants to use it. But if someone's running commercial venture, then, and especially where we are, as a city, are facilitating the payment processing, that we have a portion of that to cover those costs. So I appreciate that. This was very, very well done and thought out.
I move to approve the resolution amending the fee schedule.
Second?
All right, we'll start with Councilman Isom.
Aye.
Councilman Melling.
Aye.
Councilwoman Hartley.
Aye.
Councilman
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Consider the certified tax rate.
This ethereal thing we call the certified tax rate.
Thank you.
I was trying to figure it out, and it got back to me, so I don't know.
Thank you, sir.
Him telling me that we were destroying the middle class and how stupid we thought was being like that. And he didn't want anything to do with it, and we were going to go to jail. Yep.
As an accountant, I need that.
All right. Jason Norris, Finance. All right, Council. Certified tax rate. This always can be a little bit confusing, and it always seems to be last minute. We are required by state law to formally approve the certified tax rate in regards to Cedar City property. And this process kind of goes something like this. The county is in charge of determining property values, and that's done through the assessor's office, and it is reviewed by the Iron County auditor. And once they put in all of that information, then it's on the taxing entities to verify and submit their certified tax rate. So I got that information today, and I've provided you with a preliminary number that will be reviewed by the Iron County auditor, and by next week I'll have a final number, but it appears that the Cedar City certified tax rate is going to be 0.002393. Last year it was 0.002494. We could get in a very deep conversation about this or not, so I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the rate.
It doesn't mean that my taxes on my property are going to go down.
Correct, Councilman. So, as we've seen the last few years,
Yeah, just
property.
give like the basic explanation for our audience members.
Okay, I'll do my best. So, once upon a time, long ago, probably in the 90s.
I said, like, brief.
Oh, it's too long. So,
Reader's Digest version.
so certified tax rates are basically done by taxing entities where they say we want X amount of dollars. So let's pretend way back when they wanted $1 million. So they will divide that into the taxable property, and that will give you a certified tax rate. And it's specific to the property at that point in time. And then as we move forward in time, every new property that's built since the original $1 million they wanted to collect, that will be assessed at the same rate as those original properties. But also, another part of the equation is properties generally appreciate through the years, so that makes the rate drop, but the tax collected doesn't decrease. So it would be very hard to pick apart 30 or 40 years of incremental tax changes to show you what the original amount was. But yeah, so flash forward into 2020, properties are much more valuable now than they were at that time, and there's many more taxable homes and businesses now than there were at that time. So yes, we decreased from last year in the rate. However, it will generate the same amount of funding plus all the new growth. So your taxes will not decrease. However, we are not increasing anyone's taxes. We have to go through a truth in taxation process, and it's a whole different mechanism than what we're doing. This is just what the state requires us to do.
And could you touch on that for a second here? So looking back through this history, after the crash in 07, 08, our certified rate went up, probably because property values were down. And then we've been eking back downward ever since the recovery in our tax rate. Is this indicative that if there were another dip in the housing market, that we may need to adjust that rate back upward? And if so, what is the ramification for taxpayers?
No. So if property values dip, the rate will just increase. So hopefully I can say this properly. So let's pretend my taxes right now were $100. And let's say it's at this rate of 0.002393. If all our property values drop in half, this rate will just go up, but I would still owe $200 or so. So that floats, and that all happens through the assessment process. But the city will collect the $200 with these properties valued in relation to one another. So where you would see a big change is if you had a very valuable home that was $1 million, and let's say your value dropped substantially to $500,000, you may see a tax decrease versus somebody that might have a $130,000 home, possibly. But we won't adjust. It doesn't matter what the real estate market does. We won't adjust this rate. The only way we're going to adjust this rate is if the city said, we want a brand new $1 million from the tax base. Right. That's the only time we would increase that.
So based on the housing, so much of this is based on the assessor's values.
Yes.
Basically fixing the income per property for the city regardless of where those values set. So over time, as those values increase, we have a lower rate, and as those values may decrease, the rate may go up.
Yeah.
But it's the same amount, dollar amount collected.
But again, it's in relation. So if your house appreciates $50,000 and someone else's only appreciates $10,000, you will pay more tax.
Right.
So.
Yep. Okay. No, I appreciate that.
Mr. Norris, can I ask a question?
Yes.
You may have addressed it already, but I understand this comes from the assessor's office, this rate.
Yes.
And they run on a calendar budgeting year. Why are we always so late in getting this information from them? Just so I can understand.
Yeah, so the property tax process is on a calendar year, but everyone else, well, not everyone, most of us are on fiscal years. So they'll start collecting these taxes. When does it usually start coming in? October, November, December? That's primarily
usually November
when it comes in. So anytime you're in the financial realm, you're going to have different fiscal periods. For the taxpayer, the calendar year is a better assessment period for whatever reason.
We just always seem to be riding this thin line before we approve our next fiscal year's budget. We usually get it a week or two before or after.
I was actually going to say, we're getting this super early this year.
This one's, yeah, I mean, I got this morning.
Yeah.
We all log on to the same site, us, Brian,
Sure.
Head, Enoch, everybody. So I'm sure the assessor's office is very busy trying to account for billions of dollars in property. So I don't know their operation well enough to to tell you why it's always right down to the wire.
All right, thank you.
But this year is a lot earlier than usual,
Yeah,
so.
it's pretty good.
Did you want to, you can, yeah, you just have to come up to the microphone and say your name. We have pointed,
Stephen Gwen, Cedar City. Thanks for staying, because you're going to have to answer my question. I just wonder, it seems like that, and I'm just really asking, and I know it's a complicated process, so I hope I'm not making a mess. But it seems like that the average taxpayer could benefit or hurt in their individual property based on the lag time between the change in the tax rate and the amount of time until their property is reassessed. So let's say we had a big dip in the market, let's say we had an increase in the tax, big dip in the market, tax rate goes up, but nobody's reassessed my $1 million property. So the tax rate went up, so I'm actually going to end up paying a lot more in property taxes until the assessor reassesses the value of my property. Is there a significant lag time between these events where the rate might change substantially and the assessor might actually put a new lower value on my property? Or is there a significant lag time that you're aware of, or is there not?
It's a 12-month period. I couldn't comment on whether or not that's significant, but whether you're calendar or fiscal, it's a 12-month turnaround. So traditionally, properties don't rise or drop drastically in 12 months, but I don't have
You
I
also
don't
have
have
the
a good
ability
answer
to
for
go
that.
and appeal your tax to the county
So if there was some
on an individual basis.
you just have to come back up.
If you think your property taxes are wrong, you can appeal that to the county.
Okay, good. So if there's some sort of anomaly or something that made drastic changes, we can go appeal.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it goes through the county, not through us.
Right. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it.
Well, I understand. I just received a text message that statutorily they have to have it done by the 21st of May, and the reporting is not done until June 9th. So that's why we got it, I guess, today.
Okay, yeah.
All right, are there any other comments, questions? If not, can we get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve our certified tax rate as outlined by our finance director.
Let's not approve it yet. Let's make sure, I got to get
Do you
final
want
approval from the
to
counties. So next week,
Well, it'll be 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
Then I pull that motion from the
You
floor.
don't want them to even approve this as a tentative one?
What was it, prelim? I don't know if.
You can have it preliminary, you can have it
or
not
if
at
it's
all.
preliminary. I think this is what it will be, but yeah, I won't know that for a few more days.
Could we just ask the council for a preliminary approval, and then we'll have it on the agenda next week, too?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Consider a resolution adopting the 2020-2021 budget. And this is what I'm assuming you are all here for, related to, hold on, sit down, everyone, chill for just a second. Chill for like 2 seconds. So the way that we're gonna do this, I'm gonna let the council, if they have any comments or questions, this is for the huge overall budget. We had a public hearing 2 weeks ago. What?
Just last week.
Last week. Woo! Wow, time flies. Last week, but I know a number of you weren't here, so we'll still do some comments tonight. But I will let the council talk, and then we'll do that so that we can. Does the council have any comments related to the budget as a whole, or any specific part of it?
I would still stand by my concerns with the budget from last week, that while I have publicly said, and I will still say again, that I think this is a valid project, and I would like to see this addition and expansion happen to our recreation center, I don't think this is the time, and I think that we should, if it is a good project now, I think it'll be a good project a year from now, and I would like to see us sort of consider pulling this from the 2021 budget and allowing us to come back at a later time, but continue to follow through with the contract with Mr. Wilson on completing the information so we have an idea of what the cost might be, as well as, excuse me, as well as the needs assessment, the O&M, and the usage of the building. So I still stand by what I spoke to last week.
Is there anything else council wants to say? No, I will.
Yeah, sorry. I would echo many of Scott's comments, or sorry, Councilman Phillips. I would echo many of those comments. I feel that that at this point, in order to show that we are slowing down, taking a good look at this on the merits and on kind of independently looking at this project, we need to, in the meantime, take it out of the budget for the coming year. If, once we have all the information and it is still a good project, we can add it either to next year's budget or amend this next fiscal year's budget when we have made that decision that it is a good idea and that we have all the information we need. But I would echo those sentiments that I would like to see it removed from the budget for right now.
Can I chime in?
Absolutely.
I disagree with my colleagues for a variety of reasons. First of all, in our meeting last week, there was the discussion of mixed messages. And we have sent out some mixed messages. We were on the brink of a private-public partnership to build an ice rink. We were right there, and I think that was going to be a monumental event and a very important event for our city. And I won't discuss why that came apart, but it did. And people who were anxious and ready for that project were disappointed. We spent over a year talking about a multiple activity center, a MAC, and the mixed message we send by pulling this and not continuing the process, getting everything that we've asked for in terms of information about programming, O&M. Those are two significant things that we need to have visibility to. But the biggest mixed message we can send to our constituents is, we're going to do this project. Oh, no, we're not. No, just kidding. I think we need to finish gathering the information. And with this in our budget, like so many capital expenditures that we're planning for in the new year, if it is okay, if the money is there, if it makes sense given our circumstances, we're not going to turn a shovel on this tomorrow. In fact, it's highly likely that we won't until next spring, because that would make sense if we would have good visibility to cash flows and other things, and would have gathered the additional information we need. I think you pull this, you pull out from under our staff the motivation to go after great borrowing rates, to give us all the information we need with respect to the programming that we'll benefit from with a MAC. And I think I have complete confidence in this city council to do the right thing ultimately. And I don't think we need to make that decision tonight. And we can continue this process, and we'll do the right thing. I want to remind everyone here that we operate in a republic form of government. We vote people into office to represent us. This body, these 5 city council people, were voted into office to represent the constituency. And you've heard, at least from 3 of us, 2 very different positions. And that is healthy and wonderful that it exists. But we have the responsibility to represent the constituency. And every time the constituency disagrees, doesn't mean it becomes a ballot measure. We have the responsibility to perform our duties and to perform them to our best ability. And I will speak for some of you who are here. Previously, we had silent constituents, but I have had a lot of people come forward and indicate their support for this project if it's financially feasible. Conversation of positive comments has been significant this past week. A quiet group has decided to speak up. So there are many who are very strongly against this, but I'm finding there are many that are for it and have expected it for many, many years. I would want to keep that budget item in there, and we want to continue the process until we really have all that we need and would need should we put this on the ballot. We would need details.
Can I, just for sake of some clarification, I know there's been some confusion out there with the 2007 ballot initiative and all of that. This was not formally on the ballot. It was discussed and then pulled, but it was mentioned as a second phase of the facility. It was not on the ballot. So that is out. That is like the actual real facts. It was not on the ballot, but it was presented as kind of the phase 2. One of the reasons this came back up and why it has been discussed is in 2017, so just a couple years ago, when we did our Leisure Services, Parks, Trails, and Recreation Master Plan. On the ranking of venues taxpayers say they would use at least once a week. Item number 1 was a indoor walking track. Item number 2 was gymnasiums. Item number 3 was a field house. When you look at the ranking for venues taxpayers say they would use at least annually, item number 1's an amphitheater for outdoor concerts, 2 is a field house, 3 is a gymnasium. And then when you go down to recommendations, you go through the first set of priorities, and that's take care of existing facilities, some trails, soccer fields, signage, things that we've been working on and trying to actively complete since this. And when you get to the second set of priorities after the ones we've been doing, it's the Lake at the Hill landscaping and amenities, which shade structures will be going in shortly, so that deals with that one. Baseball, softball fields upgrades, which we have done, and item number 3 is multi-use gym. So phase 2 of the community center. So that should provide a little more context. That this is the survey that we had all the citizen input from 2017, which is what some of the council have referenced, but I think it's got kind of in the weeds because people didn't know exactly what was being discussed. But that's on the website under the leisure services, and this, I think, some of you were even, I think, in some pictures in here, but I know some faces in here participated in that from that time frame, and I know some of these council members did as well. But that actually was trying to get citizen input. I know that's been a huge concern. Is have the community been involved? Well, this is one of the things that we have been trying to go off of for a number of years, where it's 3 years old and it was a community process to build it. So that was trying to provide a little bit of clarification as far as I've seen the difference of the ballot and things that have been talked about and people a little confused. So I hope that provided a tiny bit more clarification.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. I would just add a couple of comments. I agree with what Councilman Isom has said. But when we started talking about this gymnasium back in February, was prior to COVID. It was in China. And we decided we wanted to look at this and to move forward. And at that time, we talked about a process of gathering information, analyzing it, and deciding if we could do it this year, what it was going to cost, what kind of programming, what kind of O&M and whatnot, that we're still in the process of gathering. And so I would be in favor of continuing that process. I don't feel like anything has changed. I would be in favor of leaving it in the budget. I trust my colleagues here. Everyone is very careful. We're very cognizant of what's going on in our local economy and with our citizens. And I don't feel a need for us to change direction at this time. So that's my additions.
Okay. I'll just summarize a couple of points and not repeat what the rest have said. I basically agree with Craig and Terry. I've always been supportive of keeping the MAC Center in the budget. As we talked about when we originally started this process, the 5 of us agreed to move forward with a process and obtain all the information, and get all the numbers and facts and figures. And once the ICE project was removed, as they elected to do with it, then it kind of opened the door for us to move a little more forward on this project. And I think that we will be very diligent in it. I don't see the need to take it out of the budget currently. We can do that at any time. And I've mentioned that many times in the meetings. We can put the brakes on it wherever in the process, but we can continue to gather our information, get all the facts we need, and those types of things. We're not trying to rush anything through. We're just going through the process that, would require us to be diligent and do our job correctly. And so I feel it needs to remain in. I know I'm the senior member on the council. I've been here 10 and a half years. I have been through 10 budgets. This is where an item that I have been thinking about this past week that becomes very difficult, that I would just like to explain briefly. As council members, when budget season rolls around, we work on from several other meetings to get to the point of creating the budget. It's actually the mayor's budget. It's not the council's budget, but it's actually termed the mayor's budget. And the mayor finalizes those things and then brings them back to us, where we've had discussion and preliminary meetings on the pre-budget and et cetera, and we finally get to the point of voting for it. So what I've seen over the years that kind of muddies the water, and this particular request to remove it out of the budget is one that is really difficult for council members. Why? Because I don't think there's one person that sits on this council, or I've seen in 10 years, that does not want to approve the city budget and allow the city to function as a whole. And there's lots of elements to that. There's lots of items in the budget. Yeah, it's huge. But to allow that to function, what kind of message, if we've used the term message, but what I've seen, if we remove it out tonight, it sounds like, there could be a difference of opinion. Now, the ones that want it taken out, they're okay with it. The rest of us that want it left in, we're not okay with that one item, but it makes it extremely difficult to vote against the entire budget because of that one item. And that's the point that I've tried to make all along, to rally, let us go through and keep it in the budget. There's no problem with that. We can remove it, we can amend it, we can do anything that becomes necessary as we see in a few months the actual outcome of the COVID effects. We don't know all that yet. Nobody does. We see more and more speculation every day, but nobody knows exactly what's going to happen yet, and we're aware of that. And I too trust all 4 of my colleagues to make the proper decision when that time comes. So I don't know if that helps anything, but that's kind of the way I feel. So if like I'm saying, if a motion was made to take it out, the tendency would be for me to vote against it. But then I'm voting against the entire city budget. And I don't agree with that. Because for lack of words, I would agree with 99/100ths of the budget. So why should we be forced to vote against it for that one line item when we have the ability to remove it at any point through the process? So I'll just leave it at that. I don't really have any other points to clarify. They've all been expressed. I think we've had excellent discussion. We have had a tremendous amount of input this past week, more so than we've had in any week yet. And I think it's fair to say that it's kind of typical, as I've said, as a councilman before. It doesn't really, and I'm not going to say it doesn't matter, but however we vote, a lot of times 50% are for us and 50% against us. You can't ever make a decision that's going to satisfy 100% of the citizens of Cedar City. It'll never happen. Very rare. If it does, if everybody in town's in favor of it, I'm almost wanting to step back and say, what's the problem? Because that just usually doesn't happen. So I hope you understand where I'm coming from, to maybe clarify a little bit of the point of why I want to keep the process going at this time.
Okay. Now, that was very nice of you.
Hello, I'm Easton Weaver. Sorry I'm dressed like this, going to participate in one of Cedar City's wonderful recreation programs, playing some slow pitch softball tonight. Back in 2007, glad you brought that up, my mom was asked to be on a committee to help organize a recreation center, and what was approved was the aquatic center, what happened, which I was really grateful for. She was asked by Nina Barnes to be a part of that, but part of us, not having gyms back then kind of hurt my age group all growing up. I was 12 years old, and I remember having to go practice basketball at a friend's backyard or at a park. So it was really hard to get good. But now as you look today, my dad decided to become a high school softball coach to get a key to the high school to get my sister to be able to get shots up at night, to get 200 more shots up than everybody else, 1,000 shots more a week. You look at Ken Nilsson, he had access to the college. His kids were great athletes at basketball. Trayton Tebbs, his dad has the sports academy, and Kim Blackner, I think, probably did the same thing over at Kenview High School to get his son Branson, who's doing awesome right now at Snow College and is going to Westminster. So I think it'd be great if we could have this project for that reason. Another reason that I think would be great is I talked to a Border League basketball coach, girls Border League basketball, and they got a gym 2 times a week for 1 hour apiece. That's pretty tough to build good chemistry and improve on your game. With the pickleball courts being in there, I think that would be great. People of all ages love pickleball, and it kind of sucks having to drive to St. George to go and play pickleball somewhere, especially when it's only cool enough down there at 10 o'clock at night. Hard to get some kids out. Let's see, what else? My mom, great lady. She has to do all the scheduling for gyms and basketball courts, and she's kind of at the mercy of the schools. And we love the schools, and they have things that have to go on. But when she has the gym scheduled out and the schools get canceled and they have programs come up, she comes home. Every week this happens and takes 4 hours every night trying to reschedule. She's not too fun to be around when that happens. She's not the funnest one. I have to hear about all the rescheduling. But I really think it'd be great if we could have these courts, this facility available for not people that just have private access to gyms, to improve and be able to have fun with teammates and friends and coaches and get out and be active. But if we could have this, it would allow everybody the opportunity to get in and work on their foul shot and not shoot 30% like I did back in high school. So thank you. I got to run, play some softball. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Kidder. So I had some things I wanted to say.
Tom, Dan's been coming substantially less time than you, and he doesn't forget his name.
He's not old. Depends on who you ask. I was going to say some things, and some other things came up in the comments that came from council, so I'll address some of them individually. You are correct, sir. We are a representative form of government, and most of the time we're okay with that when we feel that we're being represented. As you recall, the Boston Tea Party started over the fact that the folks of Boston didn't feel like they were being represented in taxation, and it started an American Revolution. There are times where when we don't feel we're being represented, we take things to another level. And in our representative government, we have the option to put things on ballots. And we encourage you to place this, the highest budgeted item on the mayor's budget, to place this up for a vote on the ballot. $6.2 million. We heard from the Water Conservancy, we may be facing a $100 million to $300 million price tag to have enough water to sustain the growth of this community for the next 50 years. We may be on the hook for a big chunk of money. You know, it's only $6.2 million, but as a wise man once said, $1 million here, $1 million there, pretty soon you're talking real money. And servicing the debt on those funds is a significant amount of money. So I think that when we talk about a representative form of government, part of that is allowing the people to speak. And you said you had a lot of positive feedback. And I'm glad that people have been getting interested, but I believe that a big source of that positive feedback as a result of an email that was sent out by a city employee on city time, which I have legal experts looking into to see if it is an ethics violation and a misuse of city resources to lobby for a project of this size, of any kind. I'm hearing that it could possibly be a felony. They're looking into that right now. People way smarter than I am on the law. So a lot of details were left out of that city email. The price tag was left out of that city email. Money has become available. No, we're going to borrow that money. That's not money that has become available. And then the third thing you mentioned is the ice rink and the mixed messages that would send. As you recall, on the very beginning, I came forward, in one of the second meetings I think I ever came to city council, was opposing the public-private partnership with this ice rink. I think I've been quite outspoken on that. And to paint this as just sour grapes from the folks who didn't get their ice rink, I think simplifies the issue when it's truly an issue of a massive expenditure without the voters having a say at the ballot, and taking on the service of this debt, especially in this time of financial uncertainty. I'm not all that in favor of it without a vote from the public at any time. And it would be nice. Easton made some great comments on how nice it would be if this person could use it and that person can use it, and that's great. This is a debt that all of us take on so that a few people can participate in it. Now, I'm all in favor of taking on debt that everybody benefits from, like firehouses, police officers, sewer, water, necessities that this community is going to need to meet the upcoming growth of the next 50 years, not taking on public debt that a few people get to benefit from. Mr. Adams, you mentioned that you'd be voting against the entire budget and you wouldn't feel comfortable with that, but this council has the authority to line item remove this piece of the budget right here, right today. You have that authority to do that. You wouldn't be voting against the entire budget. You would be removing that one item until we have an opportunity to get all of the facts in, to get all of the feedback from the people, and to see what the economy is going to do. And I would encourage you to do that, and I would ask you, going forward, to please put this on the ballot so that the people can speak on it. I know the Aquatic Center, because of the type of bond that it was required to be on the ballot. This matter is not required to be on the ballot yet. But I ask you to keep us from going forward with that, to just do it. Take it off today. Go ahead and give some time to look at the numbers, see what happens, and then put it on the ballot before we decide to proceed with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's my turn to talk. I've kept my mouth shut. Tom Jett, I've kept my mouth shut pretty much through this. This is a sensitive issue. It's an expensive issue. My comments here are not to side with one way or another for or against the bond or against the ice rink or against the basketball court or the Mac Center. As a landholder in Cedar City, and I've been fortunate to own several properties in our area, I pay a tremendous amount of property taxes every year, tremendous amount of property taxes. And it's a real struggle to do this, to pay these taxes. Now, many people do not understand or they don't care to understand the difference between a general obligation bond or if we do this as a general bond or if we do this as a sales tax bond and they'd like to put this on for the public to vote on. Well, again, leaving out the idea behind, is this for this project or against this project? The only real fair way to tax this thing will be if we do a sales tax bond, is through a sales tax bond. The revenue comes in from tourists, comes in from people that utilize this facility. It's paid for by large numbers, and it's not a major burden on the residents themselves. I recognize that the library, for the most part, that's probably locals that use it. But we have tremendous numbers that come use the Aquatic Center. We have tremendous numbers that come use our festival hall from outside of Cedar City. Because as I mentioned last week or 2 weeks ago about the Water Conservancy District, that we have to be careful because a very large portion of our city, de facto city, lives outside of the city boundaries, but they still receive all the benefits of our city other than, water and sewer. And, I'm tired of the taxes being placed solely on the resident of Cedar City when the benefits go to many other people in our community. And when I say our community, I'm not talking just Cedar proper. I'm talking the 20 miles around us. And so, I don't want to beat this thing to death. And this is not an issue on how we bond this, and do we bond it through Zions Bank, or do we put some money up ourselves to put this as a budget item? But if we're going to do something, please keep that in mind. And many of these people that want this, they rent, or and yes, I guess technically they pay property tax in the form of their rent, but they have no idea what a drastic cost it is to the property owner in this valley. And as we have to raise our prices, we become less and less competitive. And as a result, sometimes we end up bringing in more affordable housing into this community that's subsidized, and then it's a downhill spiral even deeper because we have to keep on raising our rents. So just keep that in mind when we're discussing this matter this evening, and I thank you for your taking the time, and I apologize, Mayor, for
not saying your name again. So just for general clarification of what Tom was saying, if it goes to a ballot measure, then it would be a property tax. It would be done through property tax. If it is not done through the ballot, then it's done with sales tax.
Could I ask a clarifying question there?
Yes.
I was under the impression from a discussion 3 or 4 meetings ago that should the council decide to seek public input through ballot, that does not preclude the council from seeking out a revenue bond.
That okay? Yeah, one of you are going to have to answer that.
No, it doesn't preclude the council from seeking that as an option to fund it.
All right, okay, thank you.
So yeah, that was just what Tom was getting at with that, because I know that there was some that had no idea what he was talking about. So
Probably didn't make myself.
yeah, you didn't make yourself clear unless you kind of knew what you were talking about.
Speaking more to the
Yes,
body versus
but I wanted to let the audience kind of understand where you were going with that, because there were some confused looks.
makes me sound a little bit more intelligible
Something like that.
or creepy, less creepy.
Okay. So,
Jeremy Snow, and I just want to address that. That's absolutely not true. We can vote on this and it doesn't have to become a property bond. If you want to have a property bond, then you have to vote on it. That's true, but it doesn't work the reverse way. And I heard that said I wasn't here, but I listened to the recording, and then to have it be said again, I'm a lawyer. I've looked at the laws. That's just so false as to be, I think, misleading. The reality is that we can vote on this, have public input, and then if you guys want to make it a property bond, then you'd have to put it up to vote again. I don't think anybody wants that. No one's advocating for it. So I don't think that'll ever happen. I think this is simply a matter of, do the people get to have a say, or do they not? No one's asking. Nobody wants a property bond. It would be stupid to do that for all the reasons that were stated. I mean, the taxes are high enough as it is.
I was just trying to clarify what he was getting at, because it was,
Well, I just want to be abundantly clear
Yeah.
to everyone in this community that is not a true statement. That if we vote on this, it has to become a property tax. That is a false statement. We can vote on it and still have a revenue bond that is not tied to property taxes. But the deeper point, I think what he said is that the taxes are so high that we're becoming less competitive. If it's true that we're going to have to spend $100 to $150 million in the next 50 years to provide water, I mean, that's $2 to $3 million a year. And that's not currently in the budget, right? I mean, this is something that's going to have to be put in the budget. Where's that money going to come from? It's going to come from somewhere. And whether it's raising, sales tax or raising property taxes, that's money going to have to come from somewhere. And because we know there are projects that we really need, like water, especially in where everyone's anticipating a downturn in the economy, this is not the right time to be asking to spend $6 million and maybe more, because it was stated in this meeting, and I apologize, I don't remember which councilman said it, but that we don't even know what the costs are, that we're asking them to go out and return to us with a better cost estimate. We don't even have these numbers, yet we're pushing for keeping in the budget. I think that for all the positive comments that have been made, I'm certain, and I'm sure we could grandma this to find out, I'm certain that there's 5 to 6 to 7 negative to every one positive. And so I believe that you should remove it. Let's get the information, then we can decide, just like we would do in a family. We don't go out and commit ourselves to spending, buying an expensive RV before knowing that we have the money, before knowing that people are going to use it. Same thing here, and that's what we're asking you to do.
thank you.
Stephen Gwen, Cedar City. I would just like to say thank you to Mayor for bringing up that survey or whatever it was from 2017. That's good information I didn't know until just right now. Thank Councilman Melling for clarifying. That was one of the big questions I had from a previous meeting, because it sounded like we were being told very clearly that that if we wanted to vote on this, it had to become a property tax. And I truly think that the revenue tax is much better way to go. So I really appreciate the clearer information. And I think that goes back to a point that I've been very concerned about through this whole thing, is about the access to and the clarity of the information. I hadn't heard anything from the schools on this, but I'd heard a lot of people say, well, our kids need this. They don't have enough places to go. So I contacted the directors of elementary and secondary education. I said, what do our kids have access to as far as physical activity on a regular basis? And the elementary director didn't get back to me, but the secondary director did, and he laid out this long list of sports and activities. He made it seem like they had plenty of opportunity for physical fitness activities of their choosing. Now, that may or may not be right. He didn't say those words exactly, but it leads me to believe that there's a little more information that could be useful. These people at the school district, I mean, they watch our kids every day. They know if they're getting what they need or if they're not getting what they need. And I think that the fact that we were a little uncertain here just a few moments ago about what the law was about the property tax or and voting may indicate very clearly that we don't yet have enough information. How many kids can afford the fee? Is it in a location that most kids can access? How many single parent households do we have where the single parent's working and can't drive their kid to this facility? It's not going to be perfect for every single kid but if that's our big motivator, which a lot of people have said it is, do we have enough information to say, hey, this MAC is going to address the needs of at least 70% of our youth whose needs are being unmet? I mean, that would be a good big chunk that we could all have confidence in. And so I feel like there's, people say, well, we need to go forward with this contract to get that information. I think this information is not part of that contract. I mean, I'd love to see that survey if we could.
It's online.
Is it?
It's under the Leisure Services tab, and when you look on the left-hand side, it's the first item. So it's been on our website for a long time.
It's good to know. Does it contain, I don't know if any of you know this, in 2016 I conducted a survey, countywide recycling survey, which Recyclops used as their business plan to come here. So I'm curious, does that publication have things like the confidence rating, if it has a 95% confidence rating or other?
It's 110 pages. I'm not exactly sure, but I know that it was a document. We had a third-party consultant come in, so it wasn't done by city staff, so that people won't say that there was that added element. It was a group that does these. We had numerous public hearings or public forums, probably a better word, where the public could come. There was an online survey as well. We sent it out in the newsletter. So we tried to get as much public input. So we kind of had a roadmap because there was all these different competing groups saying, we want this facility, and so we wanted to know what the public wanted.
It sounds like it was done well. Usually third-party consulting businesses better know their stuff.
Yes, and that was the thing we got, and there was a lot of different feedback. I mean, it's a 110-page document, so it's not a little thing.
Yeah, no, it takes a lot to write up those.
But it has the different priorities, and so that was one of the guiding things that we've tried to use. Like I said, when you look at the first priorities of fixing up some of our buildings and parks and all of that, we've been trying to use this internally as a guide for what the city wanted.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I wish that information, I didn't even know that existed. I've been here a decade. I had no idea. I feel a little out that I wasn't contacted, but it was not necessarily it's all about
for
me.
For the whole public.
So I feel like.
But I would invite you to really look at this on the website. If you can't find it, I will send you a link as well.
No, I'm sure I'll find it.
Yeah.
What I'd like to say, though, is that, there's been a lot of talk about an absence of information. There's been a lot of talk about mixed messages. Councilman Isom just expressed a moment ago, he was concerned about mixed messages, saying, well, we promised this 12 years ago. And I'm going to disagree with the councilman a little bit. I think that's not what happened at all. The mayor said it was pulled from the ballot. And so the method of promise, the method of approval was the people's vote on the aquatic center. And you mentioned consistency. Well, in this case, I believe that the greater consistency is to use the same method for the rest of this facility that we used for the first part of this facility. We voted on the first part of it. In that case, it was required by law. But now we should choose to be consistent and vote on the second part of it. If the taxpayers say that, I know that we have a representative form of government, and I'm not going to remember who said this. It might have been Thomas Jefferson. It might have been John Adams. And I'm going to have to go home and look it up now. One of our founding fathers said it's the right of the people to take that government back to themselves when they choose. So the fact that we have elected representatives does not mean we have given up our rights. So
All this conversation.
I think that we need to use greater priorities than what message we're sending in this decision. We should not make this decision based on what message it sends or how it appears. We should make this decision based on our children, our children's future, our children's needs. That's what has been, and our people's wants. If the people say they want it, then they're willing to pay for it. So, and that's why I believe Councilman Phillips made a great, we need to continue to go forward and gather more information. Not necessarily the information that's, well, I don't know what all information Mark Wilson is going to do. I don't know if he's going to talk with the school board and gather data about our children's needs and see, is this facility, in some sort of market analysis, is this actually going to reach the people that we intend for it to reach? I do think that information needs to be done first. And it seems like we have at least some of it with this. We have a good start, and heck, I would even help. I'd make phone calls to school people. I'd gather data for it to find out, just because I'm very concerned about our children's physical fitness and its effect on their academic and personal development. I'm very concerned because I've been, like I said in a meeting a couple of weeks ago, I've been house shopping, and I can't find a place that my family can afford with a backyard at all. And some of them have no backyard and nowhere, not anywhere close by for my children to play. So this is an important topic to me, and I think that we should. I'd like to ask you, I know you've all expressed your opinions, I'd like to ask you to rethink. If it's so easy to leave it on the ballot and just, well, we need to approve the budget, so just kind of ignore this one line item that does happen to be a huge line item. If it's so easy for various council members who want to take it out of the budget to just overlook it and vote for the budget, it's not a big deal, we can cut it out at any time, then it's not a big deal either to overlook its absence and approve the budget. And so, Councilman Adams, I think your logic goes both ways. I think if it's not a big deal to leave it in, it's not a big deal to take it out. And I don't think anybody's, not with that survey being our game plan, it's not going to get forgotten next year. It's going to come back because it's in the public's survey. It's going to come back. But I would just point out the last little thing. We just got done approving $25,000 in grant money to help businesses. How many businesses can we help with $285,000? How many businesses can we help with $6.2 million? I know that we want it. I'd like to see my kids get to play in it if we can afford the fees. But there are higher priorities here right now. And those higher priorities are food on our kids' tables, clothes on our kids' backs, and teachers in our kids' schools. And I think we need to remember that there's a limited number of dollars, and so we have to consider. If $25,000 is great for businesses, well, thank you. I'm sorry to have been so long.
Yes. We will do we'll go to 7:30 with comments on this, if not sooner, just where we held the public hearing last time. So, go, Kate.
Hi, Lindsay Fullerton. Can I start with a quick question? How often do you add items back into the budget after it's been approved?
And even
Traditionally we try to hold our budget revisions down to maybe once a year. This past year, we didn't follow that. I think we had, Jason's telling me 5.
So what I'm saying is, if you leave it in, you can decide to maybe not do it later, assuming the budget numbers don't work out. But if you take it out now, can you add it back in this year?
Technically, yes, through a budget revision. Yeah, I mean, through a budget revision and it coming back before the council with this, I mean, it's a similar process where there's public hearings and like the next item is actually a budget revision. So, yes, it
But
can
we'd be basically going through the same steps and process, kind of fighting for it. I understand that it was not promised 12 years ago, but you have a large constituency who's been waiting on this for 12 or 13 years. Your leisure services mission says to provide recreational facilities first, programs and special events of uncompromising quality, which creates opportunities for the social, cultural, and physical well-being of residents and visitors. I think we have a huge lack in this community. They talk about secondary education opportunities for our students. That is competitive sports. Just because a school has 5 different sports opportunities, the only students who get to take advantage of those after-school opportunities are those who are good enough to make the team and then stay there. Those aren't opportunities for the whole community and public. That is the whole point of a community system for leisure services, is that all people can participate in that. We also, as they've stated,
That email was a long list of specifically said non-competitive sports offered by the high school.
Okay. So there are programs offered by the high school. There are programs that are competitive.
they're competitive.
There we go.
There are some camps and things like that. I think one of the things you also need to pay attention to, I know we're worried about money and budget. A project like this, think about the unemployment rate. How many hundreds of jobs now become available? Again, I'm not saying just jump into it tomorrow. If it looks like the budget is there, you now have a way to provide employment opportunities for people in this community. And we also need to just make sure that you're paying attention to all the other revenue that it brings in. The number of tournaments and events and things that will take place in this community. I don't speak for summer games, so I want to be careful to say that I don't. However, I know every year they are, short of a pandemic, they are short on gyms. They are looking for spaces to rent. This building and facility can be used 12 months of the year. This is something that continually, I participate in women's volleyball. In the fall, we only get 1 night. In the spring, we get 2 nights. It's a shortened season. All of the caps on the team limits are super low because we only have a certain amount of gym space. We get bounced from one gym to the next. Each season it's different, even partially through the season. We have people showing up at one gym and it's like, oh, no, we were pushed over to this gym because this school can't take it anymore. To have a Cedar City program where you have actual gyms and facilities where your director can just schedule and use that, the revenue you can bring in, the tournaments that you'll host are going to help your businesses, your hotels, all your restaurants. So I think you need to take a lot of the things into account that, yes, we're in a pandemic. Yes, the economy looks bad right now, but in 6 months, things might look great. So I think you should leave it in the budget, keep it as an opportunity. Again, the community has spoken back in 2017, 110-page document. It's not required to be on the ballot. There's no reason to at this point. You have the data. You know what the community wants as its #1 priority. If you are smart, fiscally responsible about it, and you can see all the opportunities to bring in additional revenue in the future, I think that's what you need to be looking at when you make this decision.
And just while you're coming up, if there was confusion when I was trying to clarify Tom's ramble, I am sorry. That was not my intent. There was a lot of confusion as to what Tom was saying, so if I added more, I am very sorry. So, all right, Kate, go ahead.
Anna Marie Olenslager. Build a gym. We need it. I'm a PE and health teacher at one of the middle schools. We need it. Those kids need that outlet for their mental health, for their physical health. Okay? Even if it's in the summertime. I mean, those kids, they walk around the streets in the neighborhoods. They'll find a place to play. Create a safe space for them to play. My own daughter plays volleyball. They have to practice from 8 o'clock at night to 10 o'clock at night because there's no gym space on a school night. It's hard. It's really hard. Your community has spoken. We need a gym. We need a facility. We have 1,200 students at the school I teach at a middle school, and we are growing. We are at max capacity. Your community is growing. It needs a gym. Thank you.
Joey DeGraff. I kind of find myself like right in between both of these, the situation that we're in. I was one of those ice guys. My kids really enjoyed the ice, and obviously that didn't work out, and I was really saddened by that because now they don't get that opportunity.
Stay tuned.
But they're gonna. I would love if it were to come to fruition, but anyway, that's not why we're here. I was a little bit disturbed. Wasn't able to come last week, but I did watch it on YouTube, and I was a little concerned with this multi-purpose center, with the aspect of it having a gym and equipment in it, because obviously that competes with private businesses, and I have a huge problem with that. I do not have a problem with our recreation costing more than what it needs, than like it doesn't have to pay for itself. I love being able to have recreation opportunities for our kids, and I'm gladly to pay for that, even if my kids don't go to the multi-purpose center or whatever the MAC center. Even if they don't go, I'm happy to pay for that because I think that it enriches our community. But I do think, and what I've seen so far with our city council and everybody, I've been watching this at the same time that I've been watching with the whole ICE thing. I feel like people are getting up and saying things, and to me, it sounds like our city council is saying, yes, we hear you, yes, we hear you, yes, we hear you, but we're going to keep doing what we're doing. And that really bothers me, and I don't have the whole picture. I don't know all of the emails that everybody's getting and which way, one way or the other way. But the one thing that I really hope that our community can do is listen to the voice of the people. If the majority of the people are saying, yes, we want this, then great, let's do it. I'm all for it. If the majority of the people are saying, let's put it to a vote, then we should put it to a vote. Or if they're saying we shouldn't do it, then we shouldn't do it. But from what I've seen so far, I've seen over the past year and a half, as I've been coming to not only the ice rink things, but also the space. It seems like this space is very controversial. But what I've seen is our city councilmen saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to change this. Don't worry, be patient. But then it just keeps going towards what the people haven't been saying. Now, I haven't been to all of the city councils, but so far since I've been going and watching city councils, I've seen 2 people stand up that have voiced their opinion that they want the MAC Center, and that was just the 2 people, just barely. I've seen literally 30, 40, 50, 60 people. Well, there was 30 people here last time. I didn't hear a single person stand up and say that they supported it. So the point is, in my personal and citizenship opinion, I'm one person. I just want to see and have faith and trust that our city council, that our mayor, really listens to the people, and whether or not you were voted to represent one person or another, really listen to what the people are saying now, not 10, 15 years ago. What are the people saying now? What do they want? And we're going to do what the people want to do, not what the people 10 years ago that we're not sure. I'm glad that you brought that up, Miley, about the 2017 comments. I think that is really enlightening. The other thing I was going to say is, I think that, and it's always been this way in Cedar City, but we have a huge communication problem. I don't think that 90% of our community even knows that this is happening. I mean, maybe not 90%, but it would be a lot more than what we think, you know, and I don't know how to get out and reach those people and communicate to those people how important this, especially this thing is, because, you know, it's a lot of money, and I'm guaranteeing that it's going to end up being more than $6 million if it happens. It's probably going to be more like $10 million. But the point is, something like that probably should end up on a ballot, because if it goes on a ballot, then at least the registered voters are aware, hey, this is happening, and where do I stand on this? What do I think should be the best for our community? And let the community voice and say, this is what we want. I think that would be the easiest, the best way to communicate that it's happening. If we can provide some details, great. As far as the budget goes right now, I think we should do whatever it takes to get as much information at a reasonable cost. Do I think we should do full-on plans of this? Absolutely not. You don't need to make a full-on plan with all the architectural everything to get an estimate on how much a building is going to cost. We should limit that information, get the information out there, and hopefully, in my opinion, put it on the ballot and say, here it is, people, this is what we want to do, this is what's going on, and let the people then make the decision. If the majority of the people want a Mac Center with basketball courts and all of this kind of stuff, great. I think I would be first in line to sign up for that. But I just want to make sure everybody is, you know, aware and knows what's going on in our community before something goes up and people are like, well, they pulled the wool over our eyes about that, you know. And obviously they're not coming to city council, so they don't know. But, and it's not, they should be coming more so that they know what's going on. But I think the ballot is the best way to get as many people aware of what's going on and let them choose that way. So thank you.
Thank you.
Caleb Spenlove. So I think having the gym would be super awesome, but I also think having a brand new car would also be super awesome, and I could definitely afford it, but it's definitely not something that is necessary for us right now. I think that the 2017 is a great indicator of how we felt in 2017. And we're like, hey, what kind of leisure services do we want, and what kind of cool things could we have? And it's definitely something that was applicable then, and now we've got a new situation. We've got a whole new roadmap ahead of us. I don't know if we knew back in 2017 that we knew we needed to spend $100 million on a water pipeline to sustain our area here. And so to stop and wait, I think, is wisdom for this council to do. It's been mentioned that we can always stop, and that gets true to a point with inertia, and once you got enough inertia, then it's really hard to stop. But we can always start back up again, and our problems and the gym's not going to get any bigger, so we can always push it. And I have great faith in our city staff that even if we stop this, they're still going to be motivated in the future to continue on with this. I thought I heard somebody had said that was a fear that they had, that their staff would feel down and they wouldn't be able to move forward. But I have great faith that we have great city staff who can make this happen in the future. I'd like to thank Tyler Melling or Councilman Melling and Councilman Phillips for their inputs, and that we can always start this back up again, and that if we so choose to in the future, and even if we just asked the people in a vote, I know it has to be a binding resolution, but it's like, hey, how many people would support this? And I think it's 3 cents for more ink. I don't know how much it costs to print another line thing on a ballot, but that seems simple enough to to ask the people with their input rather than having to hire a third party to go ask the people what they want again. Some of the things brought up about the location, it's in one spot. And what the first thing that was impacted by this pandemic we're facing, and who knows, maybe we'll be facing more things in the future. I don't know. But that's going to be the first thing that closes down. And the very thing that we really wanted to have our kids do will be closed. However, some of the things outside, the parks, those are still open. And unless the police come arrest me, I can still go play at those. And sunshine's the best disinfectant. That UV radiation destroys most anything that it comes in contact with. So I think having outside facilities where all of our residents can have access to, scattered about. I live over behind the hospital, and there's two of them nearby the hospital within walking distance. And if there were basketball courts there, that'd be great. You know, they can go over, play basketball at them. I've visited probably every single park here in Cedar City, and there's plenty of spaces that we could slab down some concrete and put a hoop. And it would be wonderful for the people close by because, like it was said, those single mothers who are out working, supporting their family, they can't, drive the kids and drop them off at the rec center if they're working. But their kids, they're at a safe place like a park where there's lots of people around and you've got good neighbors, then you know what, they walk 5 minutes and they make it to the park, and they've got their friends there who go to the same school because, it's how our schools are or whatever. And so I think that it's prudent to wait, that we should look before we leap. We teach our kids, when you cross the street, you look both ways, stop, look, and listen. And I would urge the council to listen to those who are asking to wait. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll do like 10 more minutes of comments.
Chrissy Harrison. First of all, the reason why a lot of us aren't here is because we're out doing that stuff right now and have to, anyway. I'm not a huge contention person at all. I'm trying to look at like a big picture of this and stuff. I do Border League for the middle school, and we had to fight to practice in gyms from the school, and we brought in a whole Border League, 52 plus teams, for 4 Saturdays during the month, and that's a huge income builder and things like that. Well, the district has now voted to take away those gyms and pull Border League and things like that. So we're in the process of trying to fight that and trying to get that back and stuff again, for the kids for sure, and for the income for the city. So I'm trying to, like I said, I don't really want a lot of contention, but I'm trying to see this big picture of we want our economy to grow. And I think giving, like at this time, those money for the companies to grow is not a horrible idea, but what about like for the future and things like that? You have summer games that's bringing in a ton of money. You have Shakespeare Festival that's bringing in a ton of people and money and things like that. I see that with the gym too. I see that with the community being able to do it. We were still in process of trying to figure out maybe running Border League through the city and putting money in that way too. So to have these gyms postponed for longer and longer and longer, maybe not even existent, I see that as a huge economy builder and a huge money maker for the city and for the people in general to have that access to, just gone, So anyway, that's my short versions of the thing. I'm trying to see a big picture of how to help the whole community rather than just one or the other.
Ms. Harrison, can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
Why is the district discontinuing it?
I don't know. It's a whole big mess of, they had a meeting and voted when most of all the schools' representatives weren't there, so they decided to not do it, or only do it for you have to pay a huge amount of money in order to get like a half an hour of gym time. And I don't know, and from what Easton was saying too, like even through the city rec and stuff, they're sharing an elementary gym with 2 teams. They're like trying to split this half court in half so they get a fourth of a court. So I just see a huge need and a huge benefit, and yeah, hopefully that's good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey guys, I'm Bobby Ennis. First, I'd like to thank you for being here because I know that this is intimidating. I mean, it's not very fun for a whole bunch of strangers to come here and yell at you. The second part, I'm not going to yell at you. I wanted to actually offer maybe a solution. So, like, maybe we can come up with some kind of policy. I don't know, some to chew on, some thought. If it's going to be a permanent public burden, like Product Center, like Festival Hall, like these things that run us in the negatives, if we have a pretty good guesstimate that it's going to be a public deleterious constant, maybe we should just vote on those things. Because if this is a permanent burden, I mean, like, we're going to rebuild the building when it falls apart in 60 years, right? It's going to be built well, 60, 70 years, it'll be replaced,
It
right?
better last for a long time.
Almost, and it'll be built well, and it'll be built right. Maybe it could be used for a whole lot of things. At the same time, it saddles the public with a permanent burden. If it's a permanent burden, the public should be able to vote on it. We should not be, I mean, like, I'm an abolitionist. We shouldn't put people in chains permanently. You know, if somebody signs on to it and says, I'm willing to work for a couple of years for a benefit, sure, okay. But, I mean, we don't want to be thrown into this permanent, stockade where we've just got to constantly pay. Let us decide on it. Let us vote. We just want to vote. That's all. If we're not representative here, I mean, we are the loud, noisy people. Let the people of Cedar decide. They're silent. We don't know what they want. If they vote on it, I'm all for it. But let us decide. Okay. Do you have any questions, anybody? Okay.
Lindy Gunn. I appreciate that too, because I think what we keep hearing is let the people say, and I think we keep forgetting that there was an opportunity for the people to say, and that was with that survey. Again, I run a volleyball league. I coach. That isn't through a school program, and it's like with any business, there is going to be huge costs with this, right? But if we could look at what it's also bringing into the community, I think that's been said also, then we need to look at that also. We go to tournaments every single weekend, 8-10 months of the year, and we are always leaving our community because we can never do anything here. There's a league in northern Utah. They've asked me if I can host tournaments. I can't host tournaments with what I have, and it is hard. It's hard for people who aren't maybe in the know of like trying to run programs, but it is very hard to use because they're like, we have a ton of gyms, why aren't we using them? There are school gyms, but it is also very hard to use the school gyms. Like she said, Border League, why isn't it happening? I think a lot of it's liability. They're just cutting a lot of those programs, and these things that they say that these kids are involved with, I'm sure it's whatever. I think they're just saying, yeah, you could list a whole lot of things that kids are doing because of PE, but I don't think I don't know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, it's hard to use those school gyms. We're not allowed in them, or we have to pay a lot of money, and which is hard to say because that should be a public use, right? Well, those are we're paying for those with our taxes, and but we just can't even get into those school gyms. So, and another reason why I think you're hearing it's not hearing both sides of it, because I think those people who are for the gym we've gone through this in the years past, and we thought it was kind of a done deal, so you're just not getting both sides of the story here. Anyway, thanks for your time.
Can I clarify, since my email has been referred to a couple of times?
Yeah, you can clarify, and then we'll go back to the council for their discussion. You just have to say your name.
Stephen Gwynn, Cedar City. I did not mean to say that the email that the director of secondary had sent me was conclusive. He made a big, long list of non-competitive sports, but that was it. And my point in bringing that up was that there was some information there that seemed like there was a whole lot of opportunity for kids, but there wasn't enough information to draw conclusions. My point in bringing that up would say, well, there might be. He's got this big old long list, but we don't know for sure. Let's go find out. As far as, gathering more information. That's all I was trying to say with that.
Thank you.
I just realized this is mine and I left it up here.
All right, so the council, now we are back to you for the, related to the budget.
I would like to go back to Councilman Adams' point about, this budget is, it's a big thing. I don't think there's anybody that always agrees 100% with the budget, but generally we agree with 99% of it. I had expressed to some of the city administration change in some of my views this week on supporting the budget despite an item that I disagree with, where I am no longer able to ignore that item. And so I have a feeling, I know where this is going to go, but I do not want to have my vote on the budget reflect my view. It does not mean that I hate firefighters and I don't think they need to have their budget amendments done. It does not mean that I hate basketball, even though I'm 5'6" and they've always laughed at me. It does not mean that that I don't think that there are many, many important things, but I do have, at this point, this item has become one that I cannot turn a blind eye to, and I can't in good conscience support the budget in its entirety with this item. So I would move at this time to see if we could strike the MAC Center from the budget. Yeah, that's the motion.
Madam Mayor, I would like to make a comment. Clearly, this is a very difficult issue, and I think it's something that all of the council members weigh very heavily as we look at how we spend taxpayers' dollars. As you have witnessed and have probably seen over the course of months, even on other votes, we don't always agree on things, but we always try and look at what's the best interest of our community based on our own information and the information we gather from staff and other people. So I want to make sure that everyone understands that this budget and this staff has worked very hard to make sure that there has been raises put into this for our firefighters and our police department and our engineering department and our public works personnel, because they are the backbone of this community. If we didn't have those people, this community wouldn't run. And I want you to know that we as council members and staff, we are sensitive to that. So when these large ticket items come to the surface, that's what seems to be and catch all the attention. But it is all the minutia in this that really makes the difference. So I just wanted to make sure that people understood that, and our staff and our council is very sensitive to our city employees. In fact, that is our number one priority, and we had that discussion at our retreat in February. But I would like to second Councilman Melling's motion with the understanding that I am supportive of the budget, but I do believe that the MAC Center expansion needs to be taken out of this year's budget, with the hope that we can look at this down the road and that we can then move forward. So I would second his motion.
Okay, since we have the motion on just removing the MAC from the budget, a second, we need to just vote on that before we get to the actual real budget. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, so that fails 3-2. So is there any other motions?
I move to adopt the resolution, to approve the resolution adopting the 2020-2021 budget as presented.
Second?
All right. That will be a roll call vote. Well, that is the actual resolution on the table. So we will start with Councilman Isom.
Aye.
Councilman Melling.
Nay.
Councilwoman Hartley.
Aye.
Councilman Phillips.
I will vote yea with the understanding that I want the budget to move forward, but I'm still in opposition of the MAC. Aye.
All right, Councilman Adams.
Aye.
So the budget passes 4-1 and will move forward as currently outlined. Thank you all very much for coming and participating and being part of this process here this evening. We're still not done with budget items and you leave already?
We have to talk.
All right. We will do item number 15. Consider a resolution for the revision of the 2019-2020 fiscal year budget.
I would move to approve that resolution for the revision of the 2019.
There are no
2020
changes
budget.
to that.
So we just did that utility adjustment and animal control that we talked about last week, and then budgeted the donations also in the animal shelter construction fund.
Okay, I just wanted that. Okay, so you have,
I'll second that motion.
all right, we will do a roll call starting with Councilman Adams.
Aye.
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 You finally got the roll call area. All right,
We just
that
never know when
passes
which
5
way
to
you're going to start.
5-0. And next presentation, we will have our UDOT on the Bulldog Road and Kitty Hawk intersection reconstruction presentation. Thank you for enjoying the rest of our council meeting so far this evening.
I'm glad I'm on this side and you're on that side.
We just want you to know what it feels like when we're waiting for a road project to get finished.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough.
But will you state your name and everything for the?
Yes, I will. My name is Rustin Anderson, and I am a project manager for the Utah Department of Transportation. Region 4 is based in Richfield, and that's where I'm based. So we wanted to come to share some information with you guys this evening. You talked about Kitty Hawk and Bulldog Road. We do have a project in that area, and the name of the project is Coal Creek Road Widening Phase 2. That name came from a joint highway application, a joint highway committee application that Cedar City put in a few years ago. That's the Phase 2 part. The project has grown a little bit since then. And it's kind of a, how do I want to say it, it has a UDOT element and it has a city element in it, in both, and we're working together on both of it. So the Joint Highway Committee actually, you had a Phase 3 project as well that was approved. And so that funding for that project has also been moved up and is now included in this project. So you've got your Phase 2 and Phase 3 funds in the project currently. In addition to that, UDOT has added $6 million to the project to replace the structure itself.
We're thrilled about that.
I can imagine you are. I've gone
We
over
are
it a
very
couple of
thrilled about
times.
that. Thank you.
It will be a much nicer, wider, safer facility structure with pedestrian access and the whole 9 yards.
And sorry, just to clarify, by structure, you mean the bridge component?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
So like the bridge deck part that goes over the freeway.
The whole,
Put bike lanes on that?
There'll be a pedestrian area.
For like cyclists?
we'll get into a little bit more details. I've got some help here. This is Matt Hare with Michael Baker, and UDOT has hired him as the project manager
he's the design project manager, so he'll be the consultant doing the design. And I've also got Clayton Wilson here. He's a district engineer with UDOT, who covers this area and now lives in Cedar City too. So anyway, but yes, the structure, I mean the bridge. The bridge that's there now will be removed completely and replaced completely with something roughly about twice as wide as what you've got now and higher, because we have a clearance issue for I-15. The city's funding mainly is, and if you can see the picture, I'm not sure if you can see that, the city's funding or portion of this project mainly is to reconstruct Coal Creek Road on the east side of I-215 or I-15, and then also reconstruct Kitty Hawk Drive and Bulldog Road. And you guys may have heard about this project. From what I'm hearing, you probably have, and that's kind of the purpose of being here tonight, is just to...
Yeah, we had a meeting a couple weeks ago. We talked about the roundabout going in out there, and some of the council members expressed some concerns about roundabout in that area with big trucks, and that's why we called you. And
Well, not just big trucks, but farm tractors and the like.
Big vehicles.
Yeah, big vehicles. And so I'm going to let Matt, our project right now is probably about 30% complete with design, maybe 40. We're kind of in that area right now. Nothing set in stone at this point. But at the end of the day, the ownership will remain the same. UDOT maintains and owns the structure, the bridge itself, but Cedar City owns and maintains the roads adjacent, right? So they're your roads. So I'm going to let Matt talk about the design, kind of what pushed us as a design team this way, from the safety aspect and others, and just let him give that information to you to think about.
Thanks, Rustin. Yeah, Matt here with Michael Baker. So a little bit about the project. Rustin kind of went over the limits and where it's at. So the project will be widening the shoulder, the existing shoulder. There's probably 2 feet or less, especially over the structure itself. So we'll be actually widening that to 8-foot shoulders on each side, including a 2-foot shy distance. So you can kind of see from this exhibit up here. Get my pointer. There we go. The typical section, we have 2 12-foot lanes. Are you guys able to see that?
Yeah.
Okay. 2 12-foot lanes, and then there's an 8-foot shoulder on each side. And part of that shoulder will have a bike lane, as well as on the north side. Yeah, kind of maybe pan over to the left there. The sidewalk on the north side. So from this access here, 1045 north, up and over I-15, and then if you'll pan to the east to where the roundabout is, maybe. The sidewalk itself will actually go through the roundabout. While they're trying to figure that out, let's talk a little bit about the intersection from Bulldog and Kitty Hawk. So this existing intersection here is a 3-legged intersection, and so as you're actually traveling west on Kitty Hawk, there's a stop condition, which is kind of shown in this image here. So those that are actually traveling southbound on Bulldog don't have to stop. So they have the right of way, but those that are actually traveling on Kitty Hawk to the east have to actually stop at this intersection here, whether they make a right or a left. And so that existing width of that roadway is just a little bit wider than a car here. You can kind of see from this image that, those that want to make a right can kind of sneak their way around those that are making a left. And so What this does is it actually causes a backup, because there's not a separated turn pocket for the right or for the left lane there, and due to traffic volume that's going down Bulldog, it causes actually a backup all the way to the other intersection. And so that was one of the challenges that we actually faced early on, is how do we solve this issue of this storage and the lefts and the rights actually backing up there. So the idea of a roundabout was actually brought up, and so one of the advantages with a roundabout is you're able to get traffic through it continuously, and so there isn't a need to actually stop. There is a need to yield. So there's we can maybe actually pan out, Kit, and I can just talk from the whole thing. There is a need to actually merge and diverge, but by going to a roundabout, you're actually able to eliminate some of those conflict zones. And so it's right here. There's an image of a three-legged traditional intersection versus a three-legged roundabout. And so by going from a three-legged traditional intersection to a three-legged roundabout, you eliminate these red conflict zones here by not having to stop at this stop sign, look to the left, look to the right, and actually make your turn movement here, versus with a roundabout, that movement is continuous throughout.
Could you describe to them the conflict points and what it means, where cars are coming different ways, and the safety aspect where you could...
Sure. Yeah. So, and if there's any questions during this, feel free to actually chime in.
Matt, I had a question since you're talking about that.
Sure.
There's a pocket of businesses, some storage sheds and
Yes.
whatnot right in there.
Correct.
How are they going to tie into that to actually access and
Okay. Sure.
get into the traffic?
Yeah. The aerial image that you're actually seeing here isn't current. So there is a storage facility here, and their existing access is almost right off of this existing intersection. So I'm glad that you actually brought that up. And so keeping this intersection where it's at, you almost have a fourth leg that acts as a driveway into that storage facility. So what we have actually proposed here is moving the roundabout away from it so that we can maintain that access to that storage facility. And so there's adequate space from that access to allow them to either make a left or to make a right and still be able to get into this roundabout and then either access Coal Creek or get onto Kitty Hawk Drive.
Okay.
So going back to the question about the conflict points, and so a conflict point is essentially it's a movement that a driver makes that actually, let's go in there. Maybe not quite that far. It's a movement that a driver makes that could, I guess, potentially result in a crash, and so
the path of another movement from another vehicle
in the opposing direction. And so the most you kind of see from this diagram here, the most severe is those crossing movements, and then as you kind of move up here, the merging and diverging are actually less intense. And so kind of like what we were talking about earlier with that left turn and with that right turn, crossing an opposing vehicle, that's where you have, I guess, the highest risk of having a more severe crash. And so with the design of a roundabout, you are eliminating the most severe of those movements or of those conflict points.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So we often, at least it seems more common that roundabouts are in commercial, residential type, where this is industrial, and we know that it's heavy trucks and trailers and, semis with...
Including UDOT's snow trucks.
Yeah.
Good
all
question.
Of that. How does, and why is a roundabout the preferred? I know that there's we just talked about the conflict points, but getting large industrial vehicles through, is that a concern? And why is kind of UDOT moving more towards this roundabout in industrial areas?
So yes, that is actually a concern. So when we designed this roundabout, we took a WP67. That's kind of actually shown here. So that is it's a single trailer vehicle, but it creates the worst case scenario for a truck turning radius. And so we have a program that we can actually use to simulate that truck movement through this roundabout, and that's exactly what we did to ensure that the worst case scenario, which is a single trailer truck, can make it safely through this roundabout without hitting curb, without being able to efficiently move through the roundabout, whether they're coming off Kitty Hawk, going up to Bulldog, coming off of Bulldog, going to Kitty Hawk, or going up over Coal Creek. So yes, that is a concern, but
Clayton, you can come up to the microphone too.
Yeah.
Sorry, keep interrupting.
But you have to say
Actually,
it.
our approach angles and the curves with this roundabout will be easier for the trucks to navigate than the existing interchange. We make some improvements on those approach angles. The existing T right now, some of the legs, if a truck tries to turn on there, they either have to track out into the other lane or track outside of the existing pavement to make those turns. And so this is a big improvement on what we have out there now for the large vehicles.
What we have out there right now is just a train wreck, so.
And so, anyway, we see that this works very well with these large vehicles.
Let me ask you, in your models, do you have a belly dump with a pup, which is extremely larger than a regular semi-trailer?
That's a very,
because that's our biggest concern, because we have tons of them coming up Bulldog Road to this point, and how would they, going around the roundabout was my
that's
question.
that's a very good question. So when we were out there, we saw the exact same thing. So this vehicle, the WB67, actually has a larger or a worst case scenario turning radius, even with the double or the triple trailers, because they have pivot points that allow them to make a turn with a much smaller radius. And so when we design I-15 interchanges, this is the design vehicle that we use, the WB67, because it is the single longest trailer and it has the worst case scenario.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
Do you have
About farm equipment, like a combine or something like that? There's a lot of like agriculture stuff going through there.
Their primary concern is the width. They track better and turn better on things, so the turning radius isn't the thing. But we do have the adequate width to handle.
How wide is that
How
through
wide is that lane there in the
where you get into the roundabout?
circle?
So if we can actually pan over, Kit, to the right. So the circle itself is, I want to say it's 14 to 16 feet from the inscribed circle to the outer edge. But there's
There's an apron that allows
yeah. So if we can actually pan over to the right, there's actually a truck apron in the center of the island, which has a mountable curb. And it does allow overhang, whether it's the front of the vehicle or the back of the vehicle. So when you're making that movement through the roundabout, you do have the option to actually move into that truck apron. No. That's why I want to kind of show. I kind of want to show this image.
That's how we were going to pay for it. I thought was the
It's
statue
going to be a golden
sponsor.
statue, but no. So yeah, there's a.
But we don't want weeds in the middle of it either.
Yep. And so I guess let's actually move to kind of the islands and the center island. So some of the benefits of this is, we have these splitter islands, and that's what you're seeing here as you actually enter the roundabout. And so these splitter islands kind of act as a refuge for peds to actually cross. And so we'll have crossing locations at all of these, including sidewalk that goes around the entire roundabout. And so as peds actually cross here, they have an area within this island that will act as a refuge, as well as this the splitter islands kind of help with the overall speed entry into the roundabout itself. But again, they will actually handle any kind of, because of the mountable curb that is on it, as well as, they're going to be either flat work or stamped concrete, will allow trucks, farm equipment, anything that has any type of overhang to be able to safely, make their way through the roundabout.
And it's one lane.
Yes, and so sometimes when we think of roundabouts, we think of these monstrosities that are 5 lanes or five legs, 2 lanes. This is a single lane with 3 legs, and so it's not what maybe some neighboring cities have. This is a very small roundabout, yet it still accommodates the truck turning and the farm equipment.
Okay to say St. George.
I don't want to say names.
They're trying to get us hooked on the Gateway roundabout first, and then.
Most people think of the Bloomington roundabout.
Yeah, which
down
is a
there,
nightmare.
And you look at half of that Bloomington roundabout, it's 2 lanes all the way around, and half of it has 4 accesses coming off of it, really close to each other, which make it difficult. You've got to be in the right lane when you're going in there to get out.
Yeah.
And this one is a much simpler roundabout than that one. And so it's not a fair comparison if you're comparing it to that.
Well, especially for, the area where it's going in our community, something like that just would never work.
Matt, do we have an opportunity, over here, do we have an opportunity to look at, because the Google Earth map we have right there doesn't have our animal shelter on it. I don't know how this plays in with the redesign, exactly where that sits and its parking and everything else. And then my other question is the property on the north of Kitty Hawk, which currently, that area is being abandoned. What happens in that land?
I think we're still trying to figure out what's going to happen within that land. We have some Rocky Mountain power poles that we're going to have to potentially relocate, and so that might be one location where we could potentially put a Rocky Mountain pole. I don't know, Kit, if you want to maybe talk to that.
It's city-owned, so you can determine what happens to it.
It would stay with the city, and it would be up to the city to do with whatever they want with it down the road.
So where people keep asking for a dog park, maybe that's a good spot.
Right there by the roundabout? Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's right next to the animal shelter. If you get sick of your dog running around, you can.
If it runs in the road.
Okay, enough.
And then to answer your other question as far as the impact to the animal shelter, we could look at maybe Google Earth, but it's outside of the parking lot there for the animal shelter, so there's not going to be any impacts to what's actually been built as part of that animal shelter.
Is that indentation on the south there? Is that where the entrance is to the parking lot?
The entrance to the animal shelter is actually right there. So there will be a slight modification to that entrance. But
I don't think that's a problem. That's not a problem. I just didn't know how it
all actually
where the
tied together.
building sits and where the parking sits, because that obviously is not what's there now.
Yeah, we have current survey of everything that's been built as part of that animal shelter.
All right.
And this tracks very closely to what the city proposed in their joint highway committee application.
Right.
And the realignment of the road with Kitty Hawk and Coal Creek.
Yeah.
It tracks really close to this, and we're staying pretty much in that footprint that was submitted in the joint highway application, joint highway committee application.
Do you have, this is somewhat, well, it is relevant, a time frame for all of this? You said it's 30-ish%, but basically, how much longer till we get our bridge fixed?
Okay, sure. So we'll be in design phase.
Chase, so.
We'll be in design phase until about December, where we'll be advertising this project. And I suspect that we'll get a contractor on board and probably start construction early spring. So maybe March, April,
March.
yeah.
February, March, depending on how quick the contractor wants to do.
Will it all be done at once? Phase 2 and 3, will it all be done at once?
It'll all be done as one big project.
Yeah.
Your pieces and UDOT's piece, and all the construction will be overseen by UDOT's Cedar City construction crew, the local one here. So UDOT's going to take care of, they'll oversee the construction management. You'll still pay a little bit for that, for their service.
I gotta ask the curious construction question. This is me, because I've looked at lots of these. Is this a build on site, or is this something you build off to the side and put her in? Just curious.
We looked at that, and so currently we're going to be actually tearing down the existing structure and actually building it in place. So it's not going to be it's called
one of those
accelerated bridge
weekend overnight
construction.
deals like you see in Salt Lake.
That's irrelevant, but I've looked at several of those on your website.
It's about
Yeah.
the same time frame when we're replacing the Nicholas Canyon
Yeah.
Road.
Oh.
And it will be built to the side, and once it's built, we will tear down the old structure and roll it.
Oh.
Oh, cool. Good.
Let us know. We'll come
Yeah,
out and check it
that'll be
out,
fun.
Clayton.
Okay.
Okay.
So just another side.
Will you come up to the microphone?
Yeah.
Thanks.
So when we're talking construction, probably next spring, March, April, depending on a contractor, the intent at this point, and I want all you guys to be aware of this, is to close this road down entirely, to allow, during construction. We just shut it off on either end. There's not enough room with the existing structure to do it half at a time. In kind of one-way traffic, I don't know that that'd be the best scenario there anyway. But I just want to make sure you guys are all aware, the intent at this point is to shut it all down, let the contractor go do his thing, blow through it as quick as he can, and then get it open back up as quick as he can.
You'll leave Bulldog tying into Kitty Hawk open, won't you? While you move the bridge?
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
my
I think
question,
we can
too.
try to accommodate that one.
Bulldog
It's
to
just
Kitty
the,
Hawk.
it's just the structure.
Just the Coal Creek?
Yeah.
So
What's an
do we have,
anticipated construction time?
We haven't got that far yet.
Okay.
When we, and I wouldn't even want to guess at this point, when we start developing more accurate construction quantities, estimated unit prices, we'll take a hard look at construction timeframes too, and see what we think it's going to be. We don't know. I mean, we let the contractor tell us. We do a price plus time bidding. So you have a price element, which is the dollars, then you have a time element. And the time element is part of awarding the project. So whoever has the lowest bid of price plus the time gets awarded the bid. So time matters. And so if we shut it down and allow the contractor to do that, they can get in there and do it much more efficiently and quickly.
Yeah.
And we will incentivize them to complete this quicker. That's where the time portion comes in. So there's a dollar figure attached to every single day. If they complete it earlier, they get a bonus for getting it done quicker. And you get your road back even quicker. So it's a kind of a win-win. So any questions about what we're thinking as far as construction and when it happens?
I was just thinking with that, our westernmost tie-in between Coal Creek and Industrial Road, is that 400 west, or does it go through at 800?
No, it doesn't go through at 800.
It does not
yet.
go through at 800, so just 400 is the closest. Okay.
And we were all, at least, I mean, all of us that have been in the middle of these conversations, we're all aware that I-15 would have to be closed down. But we're very happy to have the bridge deck replaced, so.
Yeah.
And we're anticipating one season. We're not committing to a time frame, but
No.
it should be done by the end of next year's construction season.
That's what we're anticipating.
Well, we'll have to do all the proper notifications to all those businesses surrounding this project.
Oh, yes, definitely. That'll be part of the contractor's contract to
Yeah.
do that work. Yep.
Of public involvement.
Mhm. Yeah, and we will hire a consultant to do public involvement during construction. That will kind of get word out to the public, give you updates on, what's happening in construction, when's it going to be done, what are we looking at. It's kind of straightforward where we're going to shut it on each side, but we will have a public involvement element as well. So.
I'd just love to know, as you continue down this design process and you're 75% there, 80% there, I mean, I really am interested to know what is the plan for the roundabout itself, the interior. I mean, we're not talking statuary, but what are we talking? Is it just concrete? What is it?
We can do whatever the city would like, actually. You know, right now, we want to have the roundabout, and then we have an area next to it that we call an apron, inside of the roundabout, which allows for a little tracking. It'll be concrete and a little overhang.
Sure.
For safety, but then there'll be a section in the center that we can put landscape rock, we could put a statue, or whatever the city wanted, we could do something there.
Statue, Tyler.
It would be something that the city would maintain.
Yeah, I was going to say not high maintenance.
No, I understand. I understand.
And whatever you want to do.
Can I ask another
Yeah.
one? As far as, and I don't know if this goes to you, Clayton, snow plows and the like little median guys, how does, because when we were talking with, when I was talking with Mayor Chestnut, he said that there is a very kind of convoluted way to snow plow it. I mean, kind of talk us through how snow plowing and all of that works, because this has to be a safe intersection with these.
Yeah, and it's something they'll have to get used to. It's different. Jake Urey, our maintenance guy, we're getting a roundabout over at Mid Valley and SR 130 there in Enoch, and he was very concerned about the plowing too, because it is a little bit of a different pattern, and you've got to go through it, around it with it, and then out the other side, and then when the city would come through on their leg, they would come through it and then out the other side, and so they would go all the way around it and then out the other side to make sure that you're not leaving a windrow right where we want this stuff, and so we could kind of go through that with them, and they could work through this with our maintenance guys who are going through the same learning curve right now with the new one we're going to be getting in Enoch. So
Do you often take off a blade with hitting one of those?
now what's that?
Do you
We
often take
trip
off a
blade?
snowplow blade with hitting one of the barriers?
No, actually, there's really not barriers. It's kind of a low curb that would keep people in there, and it's a drivable curb.
Yeah, so what we do is we actually put in a mountable curb, and then on those corners that can be hit, we put in what's called a plowable end section, and so it's actually a flat area, and so as the blade kind of makes its way around, it won't actually break it. Yeah.
And now one thing I really want to make clear here from UDOT's perspective is this is a city intersection. We are not here trying to say you have to have a roundabout. We're not doing that. We are saying there are some benefits to this design that Michael Baker has come up with. The benefits are improved safety because of reduction of conflict points, improved traffic flow because you take the left turn movements and the stop sign out of the equation. And so this will move traffic quicker, and it will be safer, and we feel like we've adequately addressed the large vehicles, the farm vehicles, and all that. We think it's a good solution for this, but that's our opinion. It's your road. If you want us to put a T back in there, now's a good time, or soon would be good to tell us so we can plan on it. But it is your road, and we're by no means trying to tell you how to do it. We are in charge of the project because UDOT has a large portion of funding in here and with the structure, and so it's all together. We want to include the city, and Kit's been to all our meetings. We want to include the city however you want to be involved, but this portion of the project is yours, and we will do what you want us to do.
Has Jeff Hunter been involved in any of this?
Probably not.
And if anybody from the city wants to come and meet with me in my office, then I can talk about any of these issues.
Yeah.
I'm here in the local office.
Yep.
Are there any other comments or questions from?
No, thank you for this
Council or
presentation.
Yeah,
staff?
thank you. That helps a lot.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
I think somebody had a question over here about what's going to be in the center, and we kind of talked about whatever you want.
Right.
But when you decide what you want, let us know. Paul and Kit are both, have been invited to every milestone meeting on this project. If you want to send that information with one of them, by all means, just let us know. What
Well, I
you
think
want.
we have
Our only request to date is that it lean more towards rock and concrete and less towards maintenance.
No, I understand that, but if I dare say and not offend anybody, I don't want to repeat what happened at Providence Center, because that's just a concrete jungle out there. And weeds come up through the cracks, which they're doing right now. That whole switchback thing, and this concrete median, and then this concrete sidewalk, and then this concrete barrier, and then this concrete wall, that's all it is out there. Sorry.
No, you're not offending me. You're not offending me. I get it.
But I think we can
we'll do what you
I think
want.
we can find a way. I understand the maintenance. I'm not asking for grass and a fountain. You know, that's going to go to another roundabout. I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding.
Yeah. But I've got these two in it.
Concrete and gravel and stuff in there, where you want some color to it, not.
Yeah, and I don't even know.
Got lots of options there.
We're in an
Stamped
industrial
concrete,
area. Maybe it's
colored.
I don't even know what it is. Maybe it's some kind of a industrial something in the middle that I don't know. I don't want to.
Maybe if I could
go on
ask
record because I
Kit,
don't know.
Could do the
next
city
time we have
sale.
a milestone meeting.
Yeah.
So keep
or-
that
We've
in
got a
mind.
milestone meeting in
One of the old
July,
pieces of mining
mid-July,
equipment.
a plan in hand, right? And if I could, Kit, maybe once you get that plan set, because you'll see it, have a discussion with the council and mayor about what do we want this thing to look like, and then let us know. And we're more than happy to come back down anytime too,
Julie,
just ask
thank you
us.
so much for this. I think this information is really helpful for all of us to have a better understanding.
I hope it gives you some information so that when you get questions out there, you've got some information that you're ready to say, yeah, no.
Are you going to
Okay.
have a landscape architect on your team that could give us some?
We don't have one right now, do we? But if we needed to, if we needed to go to that length, we could find someone. It wouldn't be that big of a deal.
Joey DeGraff. I just want to say, first of all, Providence Center as a cyclist is a death trap. It is so scary going through there. Now I'm talking about road biking here, not just pedestrian walking around. And so, yeah, we definitely, as a voice of the cycling community, do not want that again, because I try to avoid that because I don't want to die. But sometimes I can't, because the running trail that's super safe that I like to ride my bike on empties out right there, and to get to the other one across to on Highway 91, I have to go through that.
We're working on that.
So, but something like this is totally fine. I think I just actually posted this to all my cycling buddies, and everybody's just super excited about this. I was really excited. I didn't even know this was happening. This is going to be great. And the roundabout's fine too for us, as long as there's something that, some sort of shoulder, not just a sidewalk. And it doesn't have to be painted lines, but at least something that people can see us, because it's going to be the same issue. The Bicentennial Trail empties out right there. And to get out to Bulldog Road and all of the Lund Highway, those are all super cycling. Everybody cycles out there. And so this is like the entryway to that for cyclists. So I just say, just keep cyclists in mind right with this project, because it's going to be used a lot by road biking cyclists and other people that cycle in the road. So that's all I have to say.
Hey, Joey, just a quick thought. If you want to avoid Providence Center, just go down to the liquor store and you can cross that other one and get onto the trail system on Highway 91. There's that other overpass. It's
Is
not
that
op-
paved?
It's not open to vehicles, but it's open to bikes and pedestrians.
No, I don't think it's paved. I don't think it's
Yeah,
paved.
if you guys paved that, we'd use it all the time, but my bike doesn't go on gravel.
Oh, okay.
It's strictly a road bike.
Oh, okay. It's
But
not,
yeah,
it's
thanks
not
for that
really
idea.
rough, but it's not paved.
So,
All right, are there any other comments or questions from council?
Thank you.
Then thank you guys so much, and
Thanks, Phil.
Move to adjourn this meeting and go into our RDA meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Quick break.
And like the other weeks, it will take a little while.
Good, because I cannot conduct.
Thank you, Bobby. Appreciate your comments. What does he do? What does he
He's
do?
an artist. He does everything, remember?
Oh, that's right.
He actually did my campaign signs. He did the whole.
Does he have a shop? Does he?
No.
Just kind of out of his home or his garage
The
or whatever?
Old Main New Vision, that was him.
The what?
Old Main New Vision, that was him. He did. He's pretty creative.
Yeah, he is.
No, he's definitely an artist.
He wants
He's
us all to
kind
be
of funny.
kumbaya.
Yeah, he wants us to have a
don't
potluck
want this-
party and
I think we need to bring some incense in here and bring incense and make it a calming place.
yeah,
That's
get us
okay.
out
God
from
love him. God
yeah,
love him.
get us out from behind this podium
Yeah.
and
Sit in a large circle.
Yeah, they, yeah, I say he's a good kid, but I think he's almost 10 years older than me, actually.
so you're not going to call him a kid, huh?
Anyway, yeah, he's a funny guy.
Yeah. I think he does try and come and promote like people getting along. He used to be a little contentious, and I think he apologized, and I think he's really wants to work with the city instead of
I
against.
want to make sure on that water conservancy, will you just keep us posted, because I just feel like I have no problem exploring and moving ahead and getting anything. I just want to make sure that we know all the information. before
Well,
we
that
go
was
on
exactly why I said I want us in a public meeting, a discussion that we're not on board for paying for all of this, that this does not mean we're going, yeah,
Because-
we got 60% of the tax base. and
256 million, I've heard 350 million.
It's about 300.
I think it's a little over 300 right
That's what
now.
it is right now.
I mean, every time, like, the environmental impact study, it goes up, but it goes up by 300,000 at a time.
Not 10 or 15,000.
No, it comes in and it's
Excuse
like,
me.
well, we've had some price increases because we had to deal with this, and it literally goes up 250 to 350,000 at a time. So some of those things are like contributing to, but no, that's why I said I want this discussed in an open public meeting so everybody's on the same page, because I felt like there's this big elephant in the room, like, we're not on board for paying for all
Right.
of this. And so I feel good about it. But I was very conflicted. I would come in and talk to Tyler, and I was like,
I keep wondering why he goes home
why
early.
am I on
His son
this
never hits him.
board? Am I a board member to further the Conservancy District?
Yeah,
Or
I
am
did
I
tell
a
you that.
Cedar City
You
Council
should.
person?
Represent the
Why I'm
interests of the
on there
city.
to be a watchdog for
Well,
the
it feels
city.
good to do other.
And I was feeling conflict
It would be well earned.
as to
Oh.
the doing here. So finally, it's like, and he was like, well, why do we want to bring water
doing RDA?
contention into all this
Yeah.
water? And I said, because I don't want this resolution signed
So
until
hopefully this will be very short.
Oh, I knew there was not a chance of that.
As short as we can
I'll feel
make it,
really
I'll
good
tell you
about
that.
it. Called Monroe,
Exactly.
I called him
I am
afterwards,
getting
and
tired
he's
of
like,
these 9 o'clock
thank you,
meetings.
that was a good discussion, and like,
No
it lets
supper.
everybody know
Yeah.
we're moving in the right direction,
know,
but we gotta
I
start
totally respect
fixing some of
I-
these
I
moving
did tell you
parts,
the same
because
thing.
Cedar
I
was
have no
not going to pay for all of this.
Where is she?
So,
I don't
Like everybody
think
else,
they're
when it's
expecting.
all said and done.
oh yeah, they are, you should
and
see
I'm
the
a team
last
player.
presentation.
What I wanted to
Cedar
say.
City water users
Yeah,
were
was we will
paying
take
all
it
of it.
I,
Really?
If we get
Yeah,
it,
so we literally would
kills
be
us.
paying like
I am not gonna be that stupid.
60% of the project.
So
I just
cute
hate to see
right there.
headlines.
And then
I know,
agriculture
see
would
that.
be able to buy the water, which we all know there's.
Gyms. I don't know what they're going to
Oh,
say.
yeah.
I have no idea what they're going to
There's
say.
no
But you can't control that.
Facebook will
Shorts
blow
and
up.
socks.
Negative stuff.
Cost to bring it in, we have no ownership or control.
No,
All those ag
I always
users are
respect everybody's
same
opinion.
price
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
Cedar
That's
City
fine. you
We
know.
have to.
users, and it was like,
Yeah, I just,
we need to start
That's,
talking about some of this. And so Paul goes, well, yeah, that's just the bookends, that's the worst case scenario. And it's like, okay,
Nice to meet you. There will be impact fees.
Are we saved?
We're ready?
See, that was, I'll tell you when we're done if they're ready to start.
Oh, are we ready?
We're almost ready.
Oh, okay. The first
Not quite.
presentation that we went to, and you probably saw that, because that's right about when they formed the Water Advisory Committee. It was done by an economist, and it was a big projection. and
All right.
a big chunk
Okay.
was in-
Ron is on.
All right, we'll call the redevelopment agency meeting to order for June the 10th, 2020. We have 3 items on our business agenda. First one is the approval of minutes dated May 20th and 27th, 2020.
I would make a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Item
Terry
number,
can have that one run on. I think she beat me by a fifth of a second.
item number 2 is to consider approval of a resolution adopting the 2020-2021 fiscal year budget.
And sorry, just for clarification, this is only regarding this section of the budget, correct?
Yeah, so
Right,
the RDA and the MBA are both separate entities, so they don't have anything to do with the recreation stuff we've been talking about.
Perfect. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
Okay, so we need a roll call, don't we? Mayor, we'll start with you.
Aye.
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 Tyler?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to item number 3, consider approval of the resolution revising the 2019-2020 fiscal year budget. Any additions, Jason?
No, we didn't end up needing to do any revisions.
Move to approve that budget.
I will second that.
Okay, roll call, Craig, we'll start with you.
Aye.
Aye.
Tyler? Scott?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Aye.
Mayor? Thank you. Okay.
Motion to adjourn
Any
this
motion?
and move into our MBA.
Okay, do we have a
Second.
second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That's so much faster than the last meeting.
Indeed. Yeah, if you're at the end of the agenda, it's like, let's just get this done.
Ready? Okay, we'll call the Municipal Building Authority meeting to order for June 10th, 2020. The 3 items on the business agenda. The first one is approval of minutes dated May 20th and 27th, 2020.
Move to approve the minutes.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, item 2 is to consider approval of the resolution adopting the 2020-2021 budget. Anything different?
Nope.
Okay,
I'll
Move
move
to approve?
I'll second.
okay, roll call, starting with the mayor.
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Item number 3, consider approval of the resolution revising the 2019-2020 fiscal year budget.
No other changes.
Move to approve.
Second?
Okay, roll call, starting with the mayor.
It's more confusing this way,
Starting
isn't
with me?
it?
It is.
Starting with me or the mayor?
We'll start with the mayor.
Aye.
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 Okay,
Move to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I never get to do that.